Chapter 1032. Lai Yunqing's eyes flashed and she regained her smile. Since you say so, I can only agree. Her tone was relaxed. However, if Miss Pei performs well, I can also write a recommendation letter for you. In the future, better universities will still give me some face. Hearing this, Bei Yunj glanced at Lai Yunqing leisurely. Her beautiful eyes seemed to be able to see through all her thoughts. Bei Yunj sneered indifferently. Zheng Su was speechless. It was not harmful, but it was extremely insulting. Indeed. Bei Yunj did not say a word, but Lai Yunqing's expression did not look too good. Assistant Zheng, my patience is limited. Bei Yunj turned to look at Zheng Su. There was a hint of coldness in her beautiful eyes. Zheng Su was speechless. Looking at this scene, Wuxia did not expect Zheng Su to be afraid of Bei Yunj. Miss Pei, people can't rely on others all their lives. Isn't it a good thing to work hard for yourself? Wuxia asked in an unpleasant tone. He did not understand why Huashidu would fall for such a woman. Dr. Luo. Bei Yunj smiled lazily. Her tone was gentle, but her bright eyes were wild and arrogant. I'm not working hard. I'm leaving some space for others to show off. These words made Wuxia's handsome face sink. He did not understand why Bei Yunj dared to say such things. Lai Yunqing glanced at Wuxia and smiled. Is that so? It seems that Miss Pei must have some outstanding points. Why don't you show it to everyone? Hearing this, Bei Yunj looked at Lai Yunqing with interest. Only animals in heat will constantly show off their advantages. Zheng Su was speechless. Wuxia was speechless. Lai Yunqing's face turned green. Fortunately, not long after, someone urged Lai Yunqing to attend the lecture. In the end, they could only leave on bad terms. At the lecture, in the last row, Zheng Su also understood this matter. It was not practical for Bei Yunj to make friends, but it was much easier to make enemies. Miss Pei, do you have any friends? Zheng Su asked tentatively. Lai Yunqing was such a mature and gentle woman, and she was also a super god. She had enthusiastically said that she wanted to write a recommendation letter for Bei Yunj, but Bei Yunj was unmoved. Bei Yunj's hand froze in the middle of writing the report. However, just as Bei Yunj looked up and was about to speak, Lai Yunqing suddenly said from the stage. This time, I see that many of you have brought a computer. Let me teach you a little trick to warm up. Lai Yunqing looked at everyone and smiled. Everyone should be interested in deciphering the computer, right? When the students below the stage heard this, they began to discuss excitedly. Professor Lai, is it difficult to decipher a computer? Generally, those with strong computer skills would be able to decipher computers. However, the students in the audience were all freshmen, so it was inevitable that they were curious. It's not that difficult. Lai Yunqing smiled gently. Currently, the best computer defense system is a new product developed by the Higgins Group. Last month, I went to their research team to observe. They are indeed very impressive. The students below the stage started to jeer, then the professor will definitely be able to crack it. As long as it is a system made by humans, it is not invulnerable. Lai Yunqing said confidently. Then, she raised her voice and asked, then, which student is willing to lend me a computer so that I can give everyone a demonstration? The female student in the last row? Everyone turned their heads and their eyes fell on Bei Yunj. P.S. Continue tonight. Thank you for your monthly tickets. End of chapter. Chapter 1033. Bei Yunj saved the report and looked at her unhurriedly. Bei Yunj felt Lai Yunqing's gaze lingering on her for a long time. It seemed to have something to do with Wuxia. Don't worry, I won't destroy your computer. I'm just giving everyone a demonstration. Lai Yunqing smiled and said, if it's damaged, I'll pay you 3 times the amount. You don't mind, right? Everyone looked at Professor Lai with eyes full of admiration. After all, she was an associate professor at Continent K's academy at the age of 28. Tseng Su's expression froze when he heard this. Bai Yunj wasn't a kind person. How could she be expected to do good deeds? However, out of his expectation, Bai Yunj chuckled and said leisurely, I don't mind. I can't stop you from invading the system. Tseng Su was speechless. He didn't know why, but he felt that Miss Pei's gentle demeanor made her seem like a bad person. But Professor Lai, are you sure you want to choose my computer? It doesn't have a good temper. Bai Yunj looked at the computer on her lap thoughtfully. Bai Yunj had been working on the program for a week in order to design the most accurate robot system. Although she had experience with the basic program in her previous life, Bai Yunj had been improving the system from time to time in order to achieve a high level of precision. Tseng Su felt that Bai Yunj's words were a little strange, but he couldn't tell why. Lai Yunqing thought that Bai Yunj was deliberately mystifying things and smiled. Since you don't mind, Miss Pei can bring it up. Bai Yunj let Tseng Su bring her to the stage. Tseng Su was well versed in the ways of the world. In order to prevent unnecessary accidents, Tseng Su stayed by Bai Yunj's computer. This was Miss Pei's computer. If anything went wrong, Tseng Su was afraid that Bai Yunj would smash the entire lecture hall. At this moment, Bai Yunj was sitting in the last row. She was bored to death as she scrolled through the group chat of the research institute. She saw a few research institutes gossiping. They said that Continent K's computer scientists were gathering. Something might have happened. Bai Yunj glanced at it and continued to read the documents. On the stage, Lai Yunqing saw Wuxia in the first row and his gaze swept across the last row. His gaze sank. She didn't know why, but she had a feeling that Wuxia's attitude towards Bai Yunj was a little strange. As a result, she was targeting a junior for no reason. If it was in the past, she would also laugh at her own behavior. But now, she couldn't wait any longer. Lai Yunqing's eyes flashed, then she switched the projection screen to her computer. He wanted to show everyone how he operated it. However, when Lai Yunqing saw the HG logo on Bai Yunj's computer, she frowned. Higgins? However, she remembered that Higgins' latest product didn't include this computer. Even the top-notch configuration sold in auctions was not of this design. A hint of mockery appeared in Lai Yunqing's eyes. Students, the computer system configuration is different, so the difficulty of our hacking will also be different. For example, it would take an expert hacker more than 7 hours to hack into a top-notch computer product of a large enterprise. As for the average random brand, it can be dealt with in 10 minutes. Lai Yunqing started to operate the computer and smiled elegantly. With the configuration of this student's computer, it can be hacked in about 10 minutes. She was saying that Bai Yunj's computer was a random brand. End of chapter. Chapter 1034. When Lai Yunqing said this, she did not notice that the red light on the computer beside her had flashed twice. Tseng Su heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Bai Yunj, who was in the last row, did not seem angry. But then, after Lai Yunqing invaded for a few minutes, the confident smile on her face froze. What was going on? She could have succeeded just now. Why couldn't she attack? Lai Yunqing's expression did not change, but her hand sped up. Everyone could see the code appearing crazily on the screen. However, 10 minutes had passed, and Professor Lai still had not attacked this inferior computer. Suddenly, everyone heard the crisp sound of a mechanical system. Undesirable intrusion detected. Please activate the following mode, at the same time. Not far away, a few options popped up on Bai Yunj's cell phone. A. Automatic lock, tracking mode. B. Anti-intrusion mode. C. Automatic alarm mode. D. Automatic processing mode. Bai Yunj casually clicked A. Then, under everyone's horrified gazes, little G's mechanical voice continued to enter their ears. Okay, automatic processing mode has been selected. Bei Yunj, who had stopped reading the documents, did not understand little G's rebellion. Soon, Bei Yunj suddenly remembered that back then, Si Chengyan had complained that this system was not enough for Bei Yunj and had taken the initiative to help personalize the system. But now, Bei Yunj had a strong feeling, although the robot system had a mandatory ban that could stop all system orders. However, once such a ban was issued, the system would return to its factory settings. In other words, everything would be reset. Bei Yunj thought about it and only planned to watch the show. At the same time, she wanted to understand what Si Chengyan thought of her. The others did not expect to see an artificial intelligence and a computer science professor fight today. Just as Bei Yunj's order was issued, everyone suddenly saw Bei Yunj's computer screen light up and a series of codes appeared. Then, on the big screen, Lai Yunqing's computer screen suddenly turned black. Lai Yunqing's expression changed. What? Her computer had been counterlocked? The students below the stage pointed and discussed. They could not believe that this inferior computer could lock Lai Yunqing's computer without anyone controlling it. However, the lecture was still going on. Lai Yunqing had no choice but to calm down. She bit her lip, looked at Wuxia below the stage, and continued to control of the computer. A few minutes later, Lai Yunqing's computer suddenly returned to normal. Lai Yunqing heaved a sigh of relief and prepared for the next round of hacking to save face. When Wuxia saw this scene, he could not help but turn to look at the last row. He only saw Bei Yunj watching with interest, as if she was not worried at all. Just as expected. Suddenly, when the students and professors in the audience saw what happened next, they were so shocked that they were boiling with excitement. Following Lai Yunqing's computer screen, lines of text appeared on the big screen, revealing little Greg's strong resentment. You're the inferior's computer. Your whole family is made of inferior computers. Everyone. This computer must have become a spirit. Bei Yunj, she shouldn't have installed those 27 miniature pinhole cameras. Soon, Lai Yunqing, whose face was pale, received a series of bullying warnings from little G. Is your system very powerful? Everyone, ? Soon, Lai Yunqing's computer suddenly turned blue. End of chapter. Chapter 1035. Is your CPU very powerful? As soon as little G's mechanical voice fell, everyone saw that Lai Yunqing's computer had completely collapsed. Everyone was dumbfounded. Is your heat dissipation very good? Then, everyone saw that the code on the computer that no one was controlling was flying faster. Soon, Lai Yunqing's computer started to smoke and the entire computer was paralyzed. Lai Yunqing's face was ashen. She could only stand rooted to the ground, not knowing what to do with the artificial intelligence's counterattack. Bei Yunj, fortunately, the system had not been installed in the robot. Otherwise, Bei Yunj did not doubt that this little thing would take a hammer and smash Lai Yunqing's computer. However, then, little G's behavior was still very erratic. It was unknown which of the 27 cameras was recording Lai Yunqing's dark face. Suddenly, Lai Yunqing's face appeared on the projection screen. Little G's crisp and tender mechanical voice sounded as expected. Excuse me, do you think you're very strong? As soon as she finished speaking, there were a few professors and students with laptops in their hands. Their laptops were coldly turned on the sound effects. The same mechanical voice sounded one after another. Excuse me, do you think you're very strong? Excuse me, do you think you're very strong? At first, it was only the laptops on the field, but then it was the phones in everyone's pockets. It was still not very harmful, but it was extremely humiliating. Lai Yunqing's face was as black as the bottom of a pot, and her entire body was trembling. The others felt their scalps go numb. This artificial intelligence had become a demon. Tseng Su was also terrified. He instinctively stayed away from this computer that had become a demon. Miss Pei was not to be trifled with, and neither was Miss Pei's computer. Bei Yunj felt that something was wrong. Her eyebrows twitched, and she stood up in time to walk to the podium. Little G, stop the command. As soon as Bei Yunj's voice was recognized, Little G suddenly became obedient. Roger that, Master. Moi, Master, Bei Yunj, what did Si Qingyan mean by this setting? At this moment, everyone else's computers and phones returned to normal, as if it was just a dream. However, everyone broke out in a cold sweat. They knew that the scene just now was real. Bei Yunj turned to look at Lai Yunqing's broken computer and raised her eyebrows. I'm sorry. I told you that it has a bad temper. I'll pay you back 3 times the price. Everyone, this was indeed the first time they had encountered a bad-tempered computer. Wasn't this computer too awesome? Just one word of inferior brand and the computer crashed on the spot. What kind of computer is this? Lai Yunqing didn't look too good, but she still asked expressionlessly. One could faintly hear the unwillingness in his voice. Professor Lai doesn't understand AI either? Bei Yunj asked with interest. Artificial intelligence? Lai Yunqing's tone was filled with disbelief. She had never thought that AI would have developed to this extent. Assistant Tseng, the lecture is almost over. Bei Yunj glanced at his watch and said to Tseng Su. When Tseng Su heard this, he walked over to Bei Yunj's computer and touched it tentatively. He didn't dare to hug it. Miss Pei, is it in a good mood now? Bei Yunj, after leaving. The people in the lecture hall were in an uproar. It's amazing. That computer is too cool. Even Professor Lai can't handle it. Is artificial intelligence so powerful? Then one day, will these things really replace us? P.S. Si Qingyan said that Little G was modified according to Master Pei's personality. Does Little G's attitude towards Master Pei look like Master Pei's attitude towards everyone? Think carefully. She scrolled through the comments and saw someone saying that Master Pei was not doing her job. Master Du had too many scenes. The second person didn't respond. I think it's alright. If they felt that Master Du had too many scenes, they could skip it or give up on the article. Firstly, Master Pei had been doing her research. However, in terms of settings, Master Pei was already at the maximum level, although she did have a huge breakthrough in the later stages. If one went further up the peak of scientific research, it would inevitably be sci-fi. After all, hundreds of years ago, not many people would have imagined the information age and smart homes. These were all the results of scientific researchers. Hence, in the later stages, Master Pei's research career would involve some sci-fi elements, but not much. End of chapter. Chapter 1036. That's impossible. Why is it impossible? Look, even Professor Lai lost to this computer. Many students were talking about it, making Lai Yunqing's face turn pale. On the way. Tseng Su sighed. Miss Pei, your computer is so similar to your temper. Bei Yunj was speechless, suddenly. Bei Yunj was about to get into the car when Tseng Su carefully held the computer in his arms and a mechanical voice sounded. Bad intrusion detected. Target intercepted. Bei Yunj's eyes flickered. If it was a normal intrusion, Little G would ask her how to deal with it. Only when it was a dangerous intrusion would Little G automatically intercept the intrusion. Tseng Su was so frightened by Little G's sudden voice that his hands almost trembled. Bei Yunj's voice was cold. Find out the reason. As soon as she finished speaking, Bei Yunj placed the laptop on the short table in the car. Soon, she saw the data that Little G had analyzed automatically. Successfully tracked the IP address data. The range is Ichenli Castle. The intruder is an intruder. There are 7 intruders from the same organization. The area Bei Yunj was in was Ichenli Castle. It was a place where top research universities gathered. The organization behind the attack on such an area probably had an ulterior motive. Miss Pei, what's going on? Zheng Su was stunned. He had a feeling that Miss Pei was more powerful than he had imagined. Where's Luo? Call Luo or Lai Yunqing over. After Bei Yunj finished speaking, Zheng Su hurriedly ran off to call them. At this moment, Bei Yunj called Zhong Xinglin. Hello, Gu. How's Continent K? Are you having fun? Zhong Xinglin asked with a smile. Old master, someone is infiltrating Ichenli Castle in Continent K. Has the Academy of Continent K done any major research recently? Zhong Xinglin's smile froze when he heard Bei Yunj's question. What? How did you know? I was wandering around the Academy of Continent K and they targeted me. Bei Yunj said slowly. She had seen similar things in her previous life. Most people might find it unbelievable, but Bei Yunj knew very well that every major research by researchers would attract attention and danger from all over the world. Zhong Xinglin did not expect Bei Yunj to be involved in such a thing. He massaged the space between his eyebrows. I heard that the investigation in Continent K has been very strict recently. It seems like something is going to happen. They're still gathering top computational technology researchers to prepare for a meeting. Nothing in the industry could be hidden from them, who had been in the industry for decades. It was just that there were some things that everyone was used to turning a blind eye to for peace and quiet. Gu, you're not planning to interfere in this matter, are you? Zhong Xinglin was somewhat worried. Old master, if their major research is about genetic data, microbial experiments, and so on. Are you really going to let me go? Bei Yunj asked with great interest. Zhong Xinglin was speechless. Bei Yunj seemed to be an indifferent person, but ever since Meng Liang held her hand and entered the laboratory in her previous life, Bei Yunj understood the responsibility of a researcher better than anyone else. Most of the panic in the world came from battles. And the most fatal battle of all mankind might just be a single genetic data leak, not long after. Zhong Xinglin called and confirmed that a professor in the Academy of Continent K had made a major breakthrough in genetics. Bei Yunj's eyes darkened. She closed the car door and typed on the keyboard. End of chapter. Chapter 1037. Not long after, Bei Yunj entered the K Continent Academy's website. Old master, does the K Continent Academy have any security alarms? Bei Yunj asked. Zhong Xinglin was stunned. You went in just like that? To be honest, even he felt his scalp go numb when he heard Bei Yunj's hacking speed. That was too fast. How could the K Continent Academy's security system be like a piece of tofu to Bei Yunj? Was it just a piece of tofu? Yeah. I remember that when K University's system was hacked more than 10 years ago, there was an alarm system that would go off. But this time, the hacker must have a good understanding of K University, so they might not trigger the alarm. Bei Yunj thought for a moment before the corners of her lips suddenly curled up into a casual and unrestrained smile. They won't, but I will. Zhong Xinglin had a bad feeling. A few minutes later, Bei Yunj's fingers moved even faster on the keyboard and hacked the entire system. In an instant, Bei Yunj accurately triggered the alarm system. A beam of light shot out from the top of a tall tower not far away and circled around the school. The alarm went off. Everyone in the K Continent Academy noticed it. Someone was hacking their school system. On the other side of Fort Aikenley, 7 people were still hacking. Boss, the K Continent Academy isn't that powerful. We've been hacking for so long, but no one noticed us. Someone couldn't help but say smugly. That person smirked. Don't be careless. Let's get the thing first. Once we're done, we'll throw a celebration party. What's wrong with that? The K Continent Academy is just a bunch of good-looking but useless idiots. The rest of us can't even compare to them. Brothers, let's just get this over with. The other person's tone was sarcastic, and his eyes showed that he was determined to win. After all, this was a meticulous plan. They didn't think there was any possibility of failure. However, the moment he said that, their computer screens suddenly showed that the system had crashed. They didn't even have time to hide their smiles before their eyes widened in shock. Who hacked the K-Continent Academy's system? K-Continent Academy's security system was created by a top hacker in the early years. Even if it was them, they would only dare to invade the loopholes of the K-Continent Academy. But now, someone had actually hacked the entire system? The 7 of them were stunned at first. They couldn't figure out which immortal had done this. However, the sudden sound of the alarm made them lose the mood to continue thinking. The leader of the group of 7 stood up abruptly. "Didn't I tell you? They have an alarm and told you not to trigger it." "Who triggered the alarm?" The pale-skinned young man roared in a hoarse voice, as if he was gnashing his teeth. The people from K-Continent Academy had long been on guard against them. Once the alarm went off, their chances of success would drop by at least half. "I didn't trigger the alarm." "Me neither, boss. Could it be that someone else triggered the alarm?" Someone muttered in a low voice. Hearing this, only then did the pale-skinned youth recall that someone had hacked into the K-Continent Academy system. But why would that person trigger the alarm if he could hack the Academy's system so discreetly? They could not understand. Then, someone guessed, could it be that someone is deliberately showing off to the K-Continent Academy, hacking the school system and deliberately triggering the alarm? Wasn't this behavior too arrogant? Chapter 1038. But why did it have to be at this time? All of a sudden, they had a bold idea. Someone wanted to make them the scapegoat. The faces of the few of them instantly turned ugly. "B-boss, can we still get the information?" The young man's expression turned ugly. He glanced at them and quickly started typing on the keyboard. But not long after, the young man realized one thing. His location had been counter-tracked. In an instant, the young man's expression darkened. This was also the first time he realized that there was actually someone who could suppress him to the point that he had no room to fight back in this aspect. He couldn't stop the other party's intrusion at all. If this continued, they would definitely be exposed. "Retreat." The young man gritted his teeth and said unwillingly. The others heard this and felt their scalps tingle. Who was this person who could force their boss to retreat? At the same time, Bei Yunj was still holding a candy wrapper in her hand. She leaned against the back seat with interest and slowly checked the other party's computer. Those who didn't know better would think that she was browsing through her own documents. Bei Yunj didn't intend to track the other party's location. She flipped through the documents and turned off the computer after confirming that the other party hadn't achieved his goal. At this moment, someone knocked on the car window. Bei Yunj had just opened the car door when she heard Seng Su say, "Miss Pei, Dr. Luo is here. Why are you looking for me?" Luo Xia's tone was cold and his expression looked as if someone owed him a few hundred yuan. Bei Yunj looked up at Luo Xia and smiled lazily. "Dr. Luo, is there a bar near the K-Continent Academy?" Luo Xia couldn't hold back his expression. Seng Su's smile froze. Miss Pei looked so serious just now. He thought that she had something important to ask Dr. Luo. In the end, she just wanted to ask Dr. Luo where a bar was. Miss Pei. Seng Su was on the verge of tears. If Master Du knew that Miss Pei went to a bar, his year-end bonus for the next few years would be gone. Luo Xia's expression was gloomy as he said word by word, "Hopeless." As soon as he finished speaking, Lai Yunqing walked to Luo Xia's side and said gently, "Luo Xia, accompany me to the conference room. Something happened in the hospital." Luo Xia suppressed his anger and took a deep breath. "Okay." After that, Luo Xia glanced at Bei Yunj and chuckled. "Miss Pei, see you tomorrow." Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. She still didn't understand what Luoxia meant. In the conference hall. When Luoxia and Lai Yunqing arrived, they found that the atmosphere was heavy. Many people were computer experts. Professor Lai, please take a seat. The dean rubbed his forehead. His scalp still felt numb when he thought about what had just happened. Something very serious happened today. I'm sure everyone can guess what it is. He took a deep breath. Someone hacked our system. Hearing this, the people in the seats were like ants on a hot pan, discussing animatedly. Not long after, someone said, "Dean, since you've asked us to do this, of course we want to help. But there was actually someone who could hack into the K-Continent Academy system. This is too ridiculous. This person is definitely not simple." Someone immediately chimed in, "Yeah, this system was created by the first Busaka Prize winner, Hesselink. After so many years, who can surpass him? P.S. At least 4 chapters today. Also, Old Sue has been sending you red packets for a week." End of chapter. Chapter 1039. If they hadn't seen the system being hacked with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed that such a person existed. Thinking of this, their scalps went numb. Someone broke down mentally. "Director, if the opponent is already at this stage, we can't guard against it." Today, Continent K Academy had only gathered hundreds of computer experts. But even if Continent K Academy could invite Marcus from Country R and Zhong Xinglin from Country A, they might not be able to guard against it. Suddenly, Lai Yunqing finished observing the hacked website and said, "Director, the person who hacked the system is not that group of people." "What? How do you know?" The others quickly looked at Lai Yunqing. Lai Yunqing smiled. "I've fought with that group of people before. The person who hacked the system might have deliberately triggered the alarm system." Hearing this, everyone reacted. That meant that there was a big shot helping them behind the scenes. Everyone was ecstatic and their desire to ride on someone's coattails grew stronger. Who is helping them behind the scenes? The others were also discussing excitedly. When did such a ruthless person appear in Continent K? Below the stage, a person appeared in Luo Xie's mind. But it shouldn't be possible to come to Continent K silently. Thinking of this, Luo Xie's heart felt empty. "Professor Lai, you know many people in the industry. Do you know the person who is helping us secretly?" After someone asked this question, everyone's gaze fell on Lai Yunqing. Lai Yunqing smiled. "Senior helping us secretly means that he doesn't want to show his face. However, I know that Mr. Nancy from Country R has recently come to Continent K." "Mr. Nancy? The founder of Higgins?" Instantly, the crowd was in an uproar. They looked at Lai Yunqing with even more envy. Lai Yunqing was too lucky. She even knew a retired top big shot like Nancy. "That's right. I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Nancy before. My father is his student. This time, I can try to contact Mr. Nancy." Lai Yunqing smiled faintly. "Mr. Nancy should be able to help us." Hearing this, everyone looked at Lai Yunqing with more admiration and envy. Lai Yunqing was also used to such a halo. She subconsciously looked at the absent-minded Luo Xie and couldn't help but smile. Inside the manor, Bei Yunj had just returned home when she received a phone call. "Max, where are you now?" The caller was K, the founder of the Chaos. "What happened?" Bei Yunj asked lazily. "Are you in Continent K?" "Something strange happened in K Continent today. Someone hacked into the K Continent Academy's system." K was shocked. Bei Yunj couldn't help but ask, "Can't I?" This is a system created by the first Busaka Prize winner, Hesselink. For so many years, no one dared to challenge him. After saying that, K sighed inexplicably. "Okay, I got it. Then it shouldn't be you. I thought you were in cahoots with the terrorists and wanted to persuade you to turn back." Bei Yunj. If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. Wait, before Kay could finish, Bei Yunj hung up. Kay, didn't he say that he would hang up if there was nothing else? Meanwhile, Bei Yunj turned her head, thinking that the footsteps just now were because someone had returned. She didn't expect it to be Zhou Yu. Bei Yunja's smile disappeared and Zhou Yu felt a chill down his spine. End of chapter. Chapter 1040. Miss Pei, Zhou Yu had been in Continent K for so many years. Other than Huashidu, Bei Yunj was the first person who gave him a strong sense of oppression. Where is my brother? Bei Yunja's voice was clear. When Huashidu was not around, it sounded cold. Zhou Yu said, Master Du will be back later today. He wants you to eat early and rest well. Bei Yunj glanced at him indifferently and went upstairs. Okay. Zhou Yu's back was already covered in cold sweat. Old Zhou, why did you come back first? Tseng Su asked curiously. Master Du asked me to come over and tell Miss Pei. Zhou Yu suddenly remembered. Oh right, find time to give me Miss Pei's math homework. Tseng Su was speechless. The next day, Bei Yunj went downstairs and sat under the huge European-style window. She chewed on her bread and looked at the rose garden outside. When Tseng Su walked over, Bei Yunj asked slowly, Brother left again? Tseng Su immediately explained, Miss Pei, Master Du did have something urgent to attend to these 2 days. However, Master Du will come and fetch you after your health checkup. Bei Yunj paused. Health checkup? Yes, Master Du has been planning to bring you to Dr. Luo for a long time. Tseng Su nodded vigorously. Dr. Luo is very skilled in medicine. Especially in psychotherapy. I'm not free. Bei Yunj rejected him perfunctorily. I still have to study. Tseng Su thought for a while and could only call Huashidu in front of Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj suddenly stood up and glanced at Tseng Su casually. She said with a faint smile, I'll go and change. Tseng Su, who felt threatened, said. Thank you, Miss Pei. Soon. Bei Yunj arrived at Luo Xie's laboratory. In the laboratory, 4 or 5 researchers were chatting. Do you think there are any other beautiful girls in our circle besides Professor Lai? Damn, what a beautiful girl. Suddenly, someone exclaimed. Hearing this, the other person rolled his eyes. Come on, what kind of beauty can there be in this godforsaken place? Before he could finish his sentence, the researcher turned around and saw that Bei Yunj had taken off her hat. Her slender, fair fingers casually brushed her loose black hair. Her beautiful eyes were unruly and bright, and they were dazzling. Wasn't this lady too beautiful? Assistant Tseng. Some people were stunned when they saw Tseng Su. Tseng Su smiled and looked at Bei Yunj. Miss Pei, this is Dr. Luo's laboratory. Bei Yunj glanced at her and responded indifferently. She then sat down on the sofa in the lounge area. The others were discussing wildly. It can't be. Are you here to look for Boss? Boss, don't you like her? How could he know such a beautiful girl? If you put this face in the entertainment industry, you'll be beaten to a pulp. Everyone hadn't finished talking when Luo Xia and Lai Yunqing came in together. This made the people who usually thought that Lai Yunqing had the halo of a goddess suddenly feel that Lai Yunqing's goddess halo was unusually dim today. Miss Pei is here too? The smile on Lai Yunqing's face stiffened. Come with me. Luo Xia only threw this sentence at her before he changed into his white coat and walked into a private room. Bei Yunj had just stood up when Tseng Su followed her closely. Tseng Su was still on guard. After all, their Miss Pei was so beautiful. Although Dr. Luo hated Miss Pei, he couldn't help but find her face more and more pleasing to the eye. Chapter 1041. Bei Yunj couldn't be bothered to say anything else and walked straight into the room. Yunqing, you guys go out first. Luo Xia gestured for Bei Yunj to sit opposite him and spoke. But Tseng Su was worried. After all, they were alone. Assistant Tseng, do you want to check for me? Luo Xia's tone was unfriendly. Lai Yunqing immediately smiled and said, Assistant Tseng, let's go out first. Don't worry. After the others left, Luo Xia asked without looking up, do you have any medical history? Yes. Bei Yunj leaned back lazily. I stayed in a mental hospital for a period of time. Luo Xia, he never thought that Huashidu would have such a person by his side. Luo Xia took a deep breath. Does Huashidu know? Bei Yunj smiled unruly. He was the one who picked me up from the mental hospital. Luo Xia couldn't describe his feelings at this moment. What kind of medicine do you usually use? Luo Xia didn't understand Huashidu's thoughts, but at the same time, he couldn't tell that Bei Yunj was actually someone from a mental hospital. Dr. Luo, tell me how much it costs to end this conversation, Bei Yunj said unhurriedly. These words made Luo Xia's thoughts stop for a few seconds. He smiled slightly. Do I lack money? Your medical equipment should have been used for a long time, right? Our nation's Medical Research Institute has produced a batch of new medical equipment in batches. This stunned Luo Xia for a moment. Of course, he knew that the medical equipment of our nation's Medical Research Institute was developed by them. However, because it wasn't widely available on the market, he couldn't get those equipment for the time being. Miss Pei, is your channel really your own channel? Luo Xia's tone couldn't hide the sarcasm. He was certain that she wanted Huashidu to help. Bei Yunj only glanced at him leisurely. If Dr. Luo wants it, you have to listen to me. Luo Xia looked at Bei Yunj for a long time and said slowly, Bei Yunj, you don't seem to want Huashidu to know about your condition. Why? Bei Yunj's eyes moved slightly and she only glanced at him. Dr. Luo, think about it. There are only 2 sets of medical equipment. With that said, the conversation was over. Luo Xia had just gone out when Lai Yunqing hurriedly approached in high heels. Luo Xia, she has already arrived at the airport. Come with me to pick her up. Listen to Yen. Luo Xia replied, all right. Then, he turned to Bei Yunj and said, I will think about Miss Pei's matter again. Something happened at the K-Continent Academy recently and I have to go out. I'll have to trouble Miss Pei to wait here. Do you need help? Bei Yunj asked with a rare smile. At this time, she didn't mind Luo Xia owing her a favor. Lai Yunqing smiled and said, Miss Pei shouldn't be able to help us. This time, we are going to pick up an important person. He doesn't like insignificant people. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows but didn't say anything. Airport. Lai Yunqing looked at Luo Xia with a sweet expression. Luo Xia, thank you for accompanying me. You're welcome. Luo Xia suddenly asked, I heard that Mr. Nancy has a good relationship with the Computing Institute? Yes, Zhong Xinglin seems to have attended Mr. Nancy's class in the past. After Lai Yunqing finished speaking, she saw Nancy walking out of the airport with a few bodyguards behind him. Mr. Nancy. Lai Yunqing hurriedly walked over and started to exchange greetings. I haven't seen you in a long time. I didn't expect you to come to K-Continent personally. Nancy frowned subconsciously. He didn't know who he had sent the last voice message to, but he was as irritable as thunder. Try not to come and see me. If you don't come and see me, I don't want you to care about me in the future. Chapter 1042. After shouting, Nancy still felt that it wasn't enough and fiercely said, hurry up and go back with me. You're not allowed to stay here. After speaking, Luo Xia and Lai Yunqing were both stunned. They suddenly wondered who could make Mr. Nancy so irritable. Nancy's anger hadn't subsided. He glanced at Lai Yunqing and Luo Xia and his tone became cold, making people feel alienated. Why are you looking for me? Lai Yunqing smiled and said, Mr. Nancy, have you booked a place to stay? If not, how about I accompany you to the K-Continent Academy? I don't have time. I'm here to catch someone. Nancy chuckled and gritted his teeth. Bei Yunj, this guy, who knew how many people in K-Continent were eyeing her covetously. He actually came to K-Continent. If Zhong Xinglin hadn't said yesterday that the person who hacked the K-Continent Academy system was Bei Yunj, he wouldn't have known that this little bastard had come to K-Continent. Catch, someone? Lai Yunqing's smile stiffened. Facing this old man who once stood at the top of this circle was indeed a lot of pressure. Although she was called by many seniors, she could see that Nancy didn't want to talk about his personal affairs. Lai Yunqing quickly changed the topic and smiled. You just arrived here. I'm afraid you won't be able to find him for a while. Lai Yunqing had already promised that she would definitely bring Nancy to the K-Continent Academy. Of course, she didn't want to slap her own face. She bit her lip and insisted, Mr. Nancy, there have been many seminars recently. In everyone's heart, you are an unsurpassable senior. They definitely want to see you. And, what if there is an unexpected gain? Lai Yunqing actually wanted to learn from Nancy. After all, Nancy's achievements in computing were even more outstanding than Zhong Xinglin and Marcus. However, Nancy said that he would never accept students in his life. What's there to not surpass? Nancy just laughed casually, but Lai Yunqing thought that Nancy was being modest. Your achievements in this life, if you didn't leave later, you could completely match Hesselink. If it was before, Nancy would be unhappy to hear this. But now, Nancy smiled. I can't match him, but there will always be someone who can, or even surpass him. After that, Nancy walked forward, and Lai Yunqing was stunned for a moment. She didn't understand what Nancy meant. Surpass? Surpass Hesselink? Lai Yunqing only felt that it was absurd and impossible. But at this time, Nancy had already agreed to take a look at the K-Continent Academy. In the car, Nancy was still persistently calling for people to die. Lai Yunqing and Luo squinted at Nancy, who had been on the phone for more than 20 minutes. They admired the person who didn't answer the phone. A few minutes later, the call went through. In Luoxia's laboratory, Bei Yunj was lazily playing with the computer. Master, my phone ran out of battery just now. What's the matter? Nancy's face almost collapsed from anger. Do you think I'm a fool? Don't think I don't know that you're deliberately ignoring me. How would I dare? Bei Yunj's lazy tone was also faint. The other people in the laboratory couldn't help but look at Bei Yunj with distressed expressions. Which Zhou Renpi was this? How could he be so fierce to this Miss Shenyan? Nancy was still angry. He smiled faintly. You don't dare? I'm at the K-Continent Academy now. If you don't come to pick me up later, I won't leave. I'll go on a hunger strike here. Bei Yunj, end of chapter. Chapter 1043. Bei Yunj's eyebrows twitched. Why are you going to K-Continent Academy for no reason? You can go, but I can't. Nancy snorted and said domineeringly, I'll give you an hour. You must appear in front of me. With that said, Nancy hung up the phone. Bei Yunj was speechless. In the laboratory, Zheng Su asked, Miss, what happened? Bei Yunj put her phone back into her pocket and pressed her white hat on her hair. I'm going to K-Continent Academy to pick someone up. Half an hour later, Nancy appeared at K-Continent Academy. The school leaders were at the entrance. It really is Nancy. Even the dean sucked in a breath of cold air. When Lai Yunqing saw this, the corners of her lips curled up. She turned around and said to Nancy in a voice that was neither loud nor soft, We're here. Thank you for coming with me. When the others heard this, they looked at Lai Yunqing even more fervently. Nancy actually gave Lai Yunqing face and came to K-Continent Academy. Nancy glanced at Lai Yunqing and didn't say anything. He just stood beside Wuxia naturally. As for the calm Wuxia, he was inexplicably nervous when he saw this god that the scientific research world couldn't surpass. Li Yunqing didn't show any embarrassment on her face and just followed beside Nancy. "Mr. Nancy, it's an honor to meet you. It's really the blessing of K-Continent Academy to be able to come and guide you after you retire." The director was so excited that he was almost incoherent, let alone the others. Nancy's status in the industry could be said to be an unshakable legend. Switching to scientific research at the age of 20 and winning the Busaka Prize at the age of 30. Anyone would think that this was cheating. Nancy frowned and glanced at him indifferently. "Director, you're too polite. I'm just taking a look around." "Then, come with me to the office first. I've already prepared afternoon tea." Nancy's face was expressionless, but he soon nodded. He was indeed tired from rushing from Nili to Yuncheng and then to K-Continent. "The rest of you, go to the conference room and wait," the director said happily. When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but discuss after the director and the others left. Was it really Li Yunqing who invited him? Then her connections are too terrifying. Otherwise, how could it be you? Li Yunqing is really a goddess. If I was so familiar with Mr. Nancy, I would have taken it out to show off. But what about her? He was humble and low-key, and didn't say anything. Exactly. If I can get acquainted with Mr. Nancy, I can brag about it for the rest of my life. Yunqing, thank you for bringing Mr. Nancy here. The dean's tone was amiable. It's nothing. It's what I should do. Li Yunqing chuckled. Besides, Grandpa Nancy is actually very easy to talk to. Isn't it because you have a good relationship? Mr. Nancy gave you face. The dean continued, Yunqing, if I can get Mr. Nancy to help us, we can only rely on you. But, Li Yunqing's smile froze as she hesitated. No buts, only you can say that in front of Nancy. Li Yunqing could only agree to try. After all, even if Nancy didn't give her face, she wouldn't give anyone else face either. A short while later, Li Yunqing walked in front of Nancy with a troubled expression. Actually, Mr. Nancy, I'm looking for you this time to ask for help. Our Academy K has been targeted by criminals. Last time, someone deliberately hacked the system. Nancy quickly looked up at her with a cold gaze. Deliberately hacked the system? Li Yunqing realized that she had said something wrong, but still forced a smile. You can't be using the Academy K's system to practice, right? Nancy's voice was even colder, and his tone was sarcastic. Don't you know that I don't like to meddle in other people's business? When he left this circle, he was completely disappointed with it. Now that he looked at it, it hadn't changed at all. If he didn't know that it was Bei Yunj who did it, he would have believed her. Li Yunqing's face stiffened. She didn't expect Nancy to reject her so directly. If you're looking for me for this purpose, I can leave now. Nancy's tone was cold. Li Yunqing immediately panicked. I'm sorry, I didn't know that you don't like to meddle in other people's business. Nancy only glanced at Li Yunqing. Although he didn't say anything, it didn't mean that he didn't know what this girl was thinking. He just turned a blind eye. There was no need to embarrass the younger generation. Outside the door. How was it? Did Mr. Nancy agree? The dean asked agitatedly. Li Yunqing hid the embarrassed expression on her face and shook her head again. The corners of her mouth curled into a helpless arc. Dean, it's not like you don't know Grandpa Nancy's temper. No matter who tries to persuade him, it won't work. When the dean heard this, his body froze. Then what should we do? Dean, it's not easy for Grandpa Nancy to come here. Li Yunqing sighed helplessly. At the same time, Bei Yunj had just arrived at the entrance of the Academy K when she called Nancy, wanting to ask him to come out. Unexpectedly, Nancy insisted that she go in to look for him. Miss Pei, doesn't the person you want to pick up want to come out? Tseng Su couldn't help but ask. Bei Yunj sneered lazily. I'm going in to pick him up. The old master has a bad temper. When he heard this, Tseng Su also guessed who the old master Bei Yunj was talking about was. Don't tell me they're some random people from the outside world? But he didn't expect. Bei Yunj walked all the way to the conference room. When she opened the door, there were many well-known researchers who looked familiar. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. Before she could say a word, the door automatically closed. But when she turned around, she didn't expect to see Lai Yunqing. Lai Yunqing saw Bei Yunj at this juncture and smiled insincerely. Miss Pei, you seem to like squeezing into other people's circle. But this circle is different. If you want to step into it, you have to be strong. The sarcasm in her words was obvious. Bei Yunj chuckled softly. Why? Have you fixed the lighthouse alarm line last night? Lai Yunqing's face turned red and her eyes shot out fierceness. Bei Yunj's words were a slap to the Academy K's face. But the next moment, before Lai Yunqing could speak, Wuxia opened the door. He asked, Bei Yunj, what are you doing here? Bei Yunj thought for a moment and glanced at them. I heard that Nancy is here. When they heard this, they immediately understood who Bei Yunj was here for. She was really well informed. Lai Yunqing's eyes were filled with sarcasm. She laughed softly. Miss Pei, do you have any relationship with Old Master Nancy? Old Master Nancy will come down to discuss the gathering later. If Miss Pei has nothing else to do, why don't you wait outside? But just as she finished speaking, a voice sounded behind her. Why are you gathered at the door? The person who spoke was the dean and the person beside him was Nancy. End of chapter. Chapter 1044. Lai Yunqing's face froze, but she quickly smiled. Nothing, we're discussing something. Bei Yunj glanced at Nancy and was about to speak, but Nancy spoke first. Yo, where did this student come from? Bei Yunj was speechless. What a drama queen. In the hall. Lai Yunqing's eyes showed a hint of mockery, but the dean was a little puzzled. Given Nancy's character, if she really did not know him, she would not speak. However, suddenly, a girl ran down the corridor and bumped into Tseng Su. The dean reprimanded her. What's wrong with you? Why are you running around the corridor? If she bumped into Nancy, there would be trouble. The girl looked up and her face was full of tears. I am sorry. Lai Yunqing frowned. Valerie, aren't you in class? Valerie was the newly hired teaching assistant of Continent K Academy. She was an intern in our nation's computing institute and taught Lai Yunqing's younger brother's class. Professor Lai. Valerie was very pretty, and she cried like a pear blossom. Please help me change classes. I really can't take your brother anymore, Valerie. You have to remember your place. Do you think you can change the rules of the academy just because you want to? Lai Yunqing's voice was cold. The dean more or less understood what was going on. Lai Yunqing had a younger brother who seemed to have been found 2 years ago. Because of his high IQ, he was highly valued by the Lai family. However, he liked to touch female students and teachers. This matter had been blocked by Lai Yunqing many times. Furthermore, Nancy was still here. The dean coughed lightly. Valerie, let's talk about this next time. Hurry up and go to class. When Valerie heard this, her whole body trembled and her eyes were filled with fear. Young lady, you're crying like this. Did something happen? Nancy frowned. When Valerie saw Nancy, her eyes widened in surprise. Mr. Nancy, it's just a small matter. Young people like to blow things up. The dean smiled and was about to ask Nancy to go back. Immediately after. Then, he heard the girl's lazy and pleasant voice. Thank you, Professor Lai, for letting me sit in on your class. Do you mind if I go back with this teaching assistant? Hearing this, Valerie felt that the voice was a little familiar and subconsciously turned around. When he saw the beautiful girl in front of him, he froze. What followed was joy and excitement, and the light in his eyes shone brightly. Why, the smile in Bei Yunja's eyes faded. Only then did Valerie remember that her identity was confidential. But she actually met him here? Bei Yunj pulled out a tissue and handed it to Valerie. Her voice was not gentle. It's just a class. What's there to cry about? Valerie, on the other hand, sobbed and felt inexplicably relieved. She obediently took the tissue and didn't say anything. She didn't know if the teacher remembered her. Back then, she had only attended the teacher's class once. Although she couldn't understand anything, she couldn't forget the teacher's face. Later on, she also wanted to apply to be the teacher's student, but she was told that he no longer took in interns. This was Valerie's regret. She was only ranked third in the beginning of her internship. If she had scored a little higher, she might have been the teacher's student, at this moment. Lai Yunqing's face stiffened. She didn't know how to stop Bei Yunj. But soon, Lai Yunqing also comforted herself. Bei Yunj wasn't even from Continent K, so how could she go against her? Chapter 1045. Nancy could tell that Bei Yunj knew this girl. She said casually, top universities should be quite open about their resources, right, Dean? The dean could only reply, yes, yes. Let's go, little teaching assistant. After Bei Yunj finished speaking lazily, Tseng Su was stunned. Miss, I have something to call you. You don't have to follow me. Bei Yunj turned around and saw a piece of paper behind Valerie. On the paper was written, I'm a green sow. Bei Yunja's eyes darkened and she quickly tore it off. This action also shocked Valerie. She couldn't help but turn around in fear. Teacher? Bei Yunj crumpled the paper into a ball and threw it into the trash can. She said slowly, it's okay. On the way. Valerie asked cautiously with a hint of nervousness in her voice, Teacher, do you remember me? Bei Yunj said, You're the girl in the third row who passed Tich a note. Valerie was speechless. Her teacher's memory was invincible. Teacher, I was just asking Tich some questions. I was afraid that I would disturb your class, so I. Valerie immediately explained. Bei Yunj replied indifferently, Why are you here as a teaching assistant? The exchange at the Research Institute was suggested by Director Marcus. Bei Yunj snorted. Marcus really likes to find trouble for no reason. Valerie was speechless. Still, he dared to talk back to anyone. Not long after. Valerie followed Bei Yunj into the classroom. She was also afraid that Lai Yunhun would bring other boys to tease Bei Yunj. Pay attention in class. Bei Yunj glanced at the worried Valerie. Valerie pursed her lips. Before she could say anything, she heard whistling from inside the classroom. This was a top university. Because of the bad behavior of a powerful person, many people were following them. Is this the new female student? She's too beautiful. Many boys were cheering. However, when Bei Yunj walked in and glanced at them casually, they felt an inexplicable sense of oppression that made them not dare to smile anymore. Let's continue with the class. As soon as Valerie finished speaking, someone in the audience followed suit and shouted, Why don't you introduce yourself? If you're shy, why don't we introduce you to someone first? The audience roared with laughter. Valerie's face turned green. But then, she heard Bei Yunj ask calmly, Are you in a hurry to introduce yourself because you're afraid that people won't be able to find a place to visit your grave? In an instant. There was dead silence in the arena. Many people could tell that this new face was not someone to be trifled with. Some people also noticed that Bei Yunja's wristwatch was worth at least 8 digits. She was a classic example of someone born into a super wealthy family. Many people didn't dare to provoke Bei Yunj, but when Bei Yunj went to get the teaching materials, a young man in a sweatshirt suddenly shouted casually, "Miss Valerie, I don't understand a question." This was Lai Yunheng. "Bring it up." Valerie's face didn't look too good, but she could only say, "Miss Valerie, my leg is not very convenient. Why don't you come down and explain it to me?" Lai Yunheng leaned back and waited for Valerie to come down. Valerie's face changed, but she could only walk over. When Valerie came closer, Lai Yunheng took out the question and listened to her explanation. However, the others saw that Lai Yunheng was wearing slippers and holding a mirror between his toes. He aimed at the bottom of Valerie's skirt. The boys took the opportunity to take pictures. Lai Yunheng smiled slyly. End of chapter. Chapter 1046. However, not long after, Bei Yunj happened to return and saw this scene. She slowly bit down on the candy on the tip of her tongue, but her footsteps didn't stop as she walked to Valerie's side. Her beautiful eyes were slightly raised, but she was overflowing with hostility. The next moment, Bei Yunja's clean black leather boots stepped on Lai Yunheng's toes, and the sound of the mirror shattering could be heard. Lai Yunheng's face was twisted and hideous, and his painful howl sent chills down everyone's spine. Everyone lowered their heads. He saw the playful smile on Bei Yunja's face. She was still in high spirits, but under her black leather boots, there was a glaring blood. The scene was chilling. Valerie's face turned pale when she saw this scene. Her voice trembled as she said, "Teacher," but at this moment, no one was paying attention to what Valerie was saying. Bei Yunj smiled and said, "Student, your feet are quite long." It was not that there was no one in the K-Continent Academy who had a better background than Lai Yunheng, but they would not spoil their own interests for a piece of rat**t. Lai Yunheng didn't expect that the day he kicked an iron board would come so soon. Bei Yunj moved the soles of her shoes away, but Lai Yunheng's toes were almost cut off. It was a tragic sight. "How dare you do this to me? Do you know who I am? My sister is Lai Yunqing." Lai Yunheng's face was full of pain, but he still yelled at Bei Yunj fiercely. "I see." Bei Yunj smirked and raised her eyebrows playfully. "What a pity. I never look at the owner when I hit a dog." Not long after, Lai Yunheng was sent to the hospital. Bei Yunj looked at the others with interest. But when Bei Yunj was called away, the others broke out in cold sweat. Who was this person? She was too cruel. Lai Yunheng's toes were almost cut off. In the dean's office, the dean's face was ashen. Valerie's face was pale. "Dean, actually, shut up. I'll deal with you later." After the director of the hospital roared, he said to Bei Yunj, "Who are you? How dare you cause trouble in our school?" "My classmate stretched his leg too far and accidentally stepped on it." Bei Yunj smiled lightly. The dean was so angry that his entire body was trembling. "You." He knew what kind of person Lai Yunheng was. If not for the fact that Lai Yunheng's talent was not inferior to Lai Yunqing's, he would not have allowed Lai Yunheng to stay. He did not doubt that Lai Yunheng would do such a thing. But this silly little girl was too ruthless in her actions. Something happened to Lai Yunheng in the K-Continent Academy. "Get your parents here. I want to see what kind of background you have," the dean said with a dark face. He had to deal with this person today so that he could give the Lai family an explanation. "Dean, this has nothing to do with her. It's all because..." Before Valerie could finish, Bei Yunj went up to make a call. At this moment, Marcus was brushing his teeth when he answered the phone, but he was wide awake when he heard Bei Yunja's voice. "There's something that you need to resolve." Bei Yunja's voice was emotionless. Go. Marcus was stunned. He did not know what was going on. In 10 minutes, the K-Continent Academy will be connected to the dean's office for a conference call. Bei Yunj looked at his watch. At first, the dean thought that Bei Yunj was pretending to be mysterious. But before he could mock him, a video conference call came. He was stunned. This number was a little familiar. Chapter 1047. Marcus didn't have time to go to the conference room, so he could only start a video conference. He was wearing a suit shirt and a pair of blue shorts. He looked very refined. "What's going on? Why are you at the K-Continent Academy?" Marcus asked in bewilderment. The dean of the K-Continent Academy pondered for a while, and his face stiffened. He couldn't figure out how Bei Yunj knew Marcus. "Aren't you going to tell me why my student was sent to the K-Continent Academy as a teaching assistant?" Bei Yunj sat on the sofa, glanced at Marcus, and asked casually. Marcus paused and glanced at Valerie. "Valerie? Since when was Valerie her student?" "She attended one of my classes," Bei Yunj said naturally. Marcus was speechless. After attending one of her classes, she was her student. That meant that he had students all over the world. "Valerie is your student?" The dean was stunned. Valerie looked older than Bei Yunj. Saying that Bei Yunj was Valerie's student was more like it. Marcus was also a smart person. He could see that Valerie's eyes were red. She might have been wronged and Bei Yunj saw it. He sighed. He knew what Bei Yunj wanted to do. Soon, a smile appeared on Marcus' face. "You still don't know her? Then let me introduce her to you. This is the former member of our country's computing institute that you mentioned to me more than a dozen times." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone suddenly fell silent. The dean froze, and his mind was in a mess. What? What did she mean? This was... The dean immediately turned his head and looked at the girl who was less than 20 years old in front of him. There was only one thought in his mind. She was F*King Dun 4. That's not right. How could you not know? Didn't we remind you that criminals had hacked into your system yesterday? The dean's face turned paler with every word Marcus said. They had hacked into the system. Let's talk about how to deal with my student who was sexually harassed in your school. Bei Yunj glanced at his phone and threw the evidence that Kay had found to the dean. The dean's face turned pale after reading it. Bei Yunj found Lai Yunheng's private group chat. There were all kinds of unsightly chat records. Last month, someone deliberately wet Valerie's clothes with water. Half a month ago, someone took the opportunity to hug Valerie and discussed in the group chat about Valerie's touch with other girls. A few days ago, someone had even left a note in Valerie's office filled with obscenities. "Teacher, I didn't expect Valerie to be your student." The dean's to Valerie's face. "I shouldn't have left Lai Yunheng alive." Bei Yunj chuckled softly, but the smile did not reach his eyes. He said slowly, "I didn't expect that someone would dare to touch my student." Her eyes curved as she continued to ask him in a good mood, but her tone was gentle. "Dean, do you think the reputation of the K-Country Academy will be destroyed in my hands?" The dean's face turned pale. The scientific research community was undoubtedly the most competitive. Back then, in order to make him an honorary professor, Neely University had reportedly reached an in-depth cooperation with the Computing Institute. If he expressed his stance on this matter, the consequences would be unimaginable. P.S. Good night. Chapter 1048. Hearing this, Valerie, who was beside her, was a little helpless. She only dared to look at Bei Yunj's faint smile. However, just as the dean was at a loss, the door to the dean's office was suddenly pushed open. Lai Yunqing walked in with a dark expression. When she saw Bei Yunj, she sneered. "Wow, Miss Pei is still here." "Yunqing." The dean was so frightened that his temples throbbed. He couldn't help but scold her. Lai Yunqing was considered the most promising newcomer in Continent K, so she had the right to be arrogant. However, the person sitting on the sofa opposite her was no ordinary person. It was the person who was nominated for both the Busaka and Farisk awards. Lai Yunqing narrowed her eyes. She didn't know what it meant for the dean to help Bei Yunj. Instead, she sneered. "Dean, I've been with Continent K for many years. Now that my brother's leg is about to be crippled, why are you helping an outsider instead of helping me? Yunqing, you have to know how bad Lai Yunqing's behavior is in school." The dean's expression was ugly. He didn't dare to say anything in front of Bei Yunj. Moreover, the video conference was still going on. Marcus and the others saw this scene. "Ha. Okay." Lai Yunqing sneered and nodded. "Bad behavior?" It seems that in the vice dean's eyes, as an associate professor and Lai Yunheng's sister, I have a stain on my record. Since that's the case, there's no need for me to continue staying here. Professor Lai, I didn't think of it that way. You. The dean started to have a headache. Lai Yunqing was a core member of Continent K's computing association. If Lai Yunqing left, it would affect Continent K's academy greatly. Now, as Lai Yunheng's sister, I just want to seek justice for my brother. I want the person who hurt him to pay the price. Lai Yunqing stared at Bei Yunj gloomily and sneered. "Miss Pei, I didn't argue with you because you were Luo Xie's friend. However, if you can't give me an explanation, you'd better call your parents here. Our Lai family is not to be trifled with in Continent K." Hearing this, the principal's heart skipped a beat. He was afraid that if Bei Yunj was unhappy, she would punish Lai Yunqing along with the Academy of K Continent. Suddenly, a burst of applause attracted Lai Yunqing's attention. "Good, Professor Lai is really bold." Lai Yunqing took a closer look and recognized that the person in the video conference was Marcus. Her face turned pale. Director Marcus, she had almost forgotten that no matter how weak Valerie's background was, she was still from the Our Nation's Computing Institute. And her brother had indeed been harassing the people at Country R's Computing Institute, true enough. Marcus laughed, but his eyes were cold. "I haven't even gotten an explanation for the sexual harassment of the members I targeted, yet Professor Lai has come knocking on my door." Lai Yunqing looked flustered. She really didn't expect that the director's office was still holding a video conference. He was just an ordinary member. Why was a core member of the Our Nation's Research Institute attending a meeting? Just as Marcus was about to launch an attack, he suddenly paused and smiled meaningfully. "Isn't Professor Lai looking for Miss Pei's parents?" Lai Yunqing was stunned by this sudden question. But then, a familiar voice sounded outside the door. "Who's looking for me?" Lai Yunqing's expression changed. She turned around and saw Nancy. End of chapter. Chapter 1049. What was going on? Bei Yunja's parent was Nancy? Why? The color drained from Lai Yunqing's face, and the dean subconsciously closed his eyes, feeling very regretful. Sure enough, Nance knew Bei Yunj from the start. "Marcus? What are you doing here?" Nancy's tone was full of wariness. Don't think that he didn't know that Marcus and Zhong Xinglin were like ghosts, thinking about how to kidnap other people's disciples every day. "Teacher Nancy, it was your student who hurt Professor Lai's brother for the sake of a member of our institute. Look, someone is here to denounce her." Hearing Marcus's words, Lai Yunqing's expression became even worse. Bei Yunj was Nancy's student? What was going on? Didn't Nancy never accept students? How could Bei Yunj become Nancy's student? However, after Nancy learned the truth, his face darkened. Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj's fingers, which were holding the candy wrapper, paused. "What do you mean? I pretended not to know you. Don't you know how to coax an old man like me? You even called Marcus, this lousy guy." Nancy was stunned, then he said angrily. Bei Yunj, Marcus's team couldn't help but lower their heads, not daring to look at their leader's expression. Nancy's eyes widened, and the more he spoke, the sadder he became. "What, do you want to change masters? To think that I didn't even sleep for 3 days looking for you." Sure enough, this little girl doesn't have a heart at all. Bei Yunja's eyebrows moved, and the corners of his lips twitched. After a while, he said, I didn't mean that. Marcus's heart was sour and he despised Nancy, this old bastard. Before he became Bei Yunja's master, he always called her Good Gu-er. After he became her master, he treated himself like Gu-er's grandfather every day, and he even asked Gu-er to coax him. Was there anyone more shameless than this old thing? Valerie is from Marcus's institute. Bei Yunja's eyelids twitched, and he could only lick his red lips as he explained. Didn't you hear what he said? He told you to call your parents, and Marcus is your parent? In Nancy's mind, she kept imagining Marcus seizing the opportunity to seize power in her absence. She couldn't wait to fight with Marcus. Marcus, was this old thing was getting more and more out of control? Bei Yunja and Nance never thought that Nance's brain would be like this. Weren't you unwilling? The girl's usually high-spirited face revealed a hint of helplessness. Nancy's entire body. Everyone's a Yunja's on. Nancy's? These are two different things. This old man only has one disciple in his life. How can I let others bully her? Lai Yunqing had just heard Nancy's words when his cold gaze slowly swept over her. Professor Lai, do you have any advice for this old man's education? Lai Yunqing trembled. His body was already cold. How many people in this circle dared to challenge Nancy? This matter has nothing to do with Professor Lai. Professor Lai has been in a bad mood recently, and he offended Mr. Nancy Ann. Miss Pei. The dean seized the opportunity to make Lai Yunqing owe him a favor. End of chapter. Chapter 1050. Just as expected. Lai Yunqing looked at the dean gratefully, but when he glanced at Bei Yunj, there was still a trace of unwillingness in his eyes. After Lai Yunqing left. Mr. Nancy, Marcus, our school has decided to expel Lai Yunheng and give Miss Valerie some financial compensation. The dean asked carefully, what do you think of this? This has nothing to do with me. Nancy snorted coldly and was about to ask Bei Yunj to leave when he heard the dean hurriedly say. Teacher, since you've already helped us once, can we beg you to help us again? As soon as the dean finished speaking, Nancy subconsciously looked at him with a trace of shock in his eyes. How did he know Gu-er's identity? Half a minute later. Nancy said to Bei Yunj, you go back first, I still have something to say. Bei Yunj nodded. After he left, the atmosphere became even colder. Dean Donner, your identity can't be revealed to the public. Nancy's face was expressionless, and his pair of eagle-like blue eyes revealed an inviolable majesty. The dean smiled, I didn't tell Professor Lai Yunqing either, right? Don't worry, teacher has helped our school before, why would I harm her? On the contrary, if teacher can become our school's honorary professor, I will do my best to protect her reputation. It wasn't that the dean didn't know that those who met her would definitely sign a confidentiality agreement. But unfortunately, he didn't sign that confidentiality agreement. No one would have thought that he would expose his identity for a student he met by chance. Nancy's eyes darkened, he understood what the dean meant. He could keep it a secret, but he had to help him solve the problem he was facing, get more benefits for the K-Continent Academy, and stand on the same side as the K-Continent Academy. Donner, you're quite ambitious. Nancy's tone revealed a lot of anger. But at this time, the dean was fearless because of this. Especially now, when he was still alone in the K-Continent Academy. Mr. Nancy, please think about it. Besides, this is not a bad thing for the teacher. The dean's eyes flashed with greed. At that time, it was rumored that he was about 35 years old. But he never would have thought that, he wasn't even 20 years old. Such a super genius could bring too many benefits to their academy. Therefore, even if he offended Nancy, he still wanted to obtain these unimaginable benefits. Nancy sneered and said angrily, Donner, do you really think that I can't do anything to you now that I'm no longer in the circle? She's my disciple. If you dare to let anything happen to her, I have plenty of ways to tear down your academy. After that, Nancy slammed the door and left. But as soon as he turned the corner, he saw Bei Yunj waiting lazily at the door. Seeing Nancy's furious expression, Bei Yunj knew in her heart that she would definitely be reprimanded this time. She thought quickly and had just organized her words when Nancy suddenly walked towards her and raised her hand. Bei Yunj had an inexplicable bad feeling in her heart. She lowered her head subconsciously, but she didn't expect that in the next moment, a warm and dry palm would suddenly rub her head. After Nancy's faint sigh dissipated, only the curvature of her mouth remained. Let's go home. This guy was more unbridled than when he was young. Nancy knew very well what Bei Yunj was thinking. End of chapter. Chapter 1051. If Bei Yunj had only helped Valerie deal with someone, Valerie would probably get into even bigger trouble in the future. By doing this, she was undoubtedly protecting Valerie's path of retreat. Bei Yunj's eyebrows twitched. This was the first time she had seen Nancy so gentle. Master, you're not angry anymore? Nancy walked in front of Bei Yunj and snorted lightly. Since you're born as a human, you have to live like a human. What's there to be angry about? As a researcher, a sense of mission was greater than one's own strength. This was the right direction for future research and development. Bei Yunj's lips curled up as she walked slowly behind him. You have to remember that the older generation of researchers in your country are worthy of respect by countless people. Nancy narrowed his eyes and recalled the memories of Zhong Xinglin and the others secretly coming to his class. He could not help but chuckle silently. Nancy changed his profession at the age of 20 and became the principal of Neely University at the age of 30. It was also during those years that he met Zhong Xinglin. At that time, the scientific research and technology of Country A was very different from that of Country R. As a result, even the extremely talented Zhong Xinglin suffered a lot when he was studying abroad. However, Zhong Xinglin was willing to study wholeheartedly. He often hid in a corner and listened to Nancy teach graduate students. Nancy pretended not to know. In the 9th year, Zhong Xinglin won the K.Z. Busaka Award. After that, Zhong Xinglin resolutely chose to develop in the country when faced with the temptation of a salary that was hundreds of times higher overseas. Even in the few years when he returned, he had faced resistance from the domestic circle because of differences in views. However, in Nancy's eyes, old researchers like Zhong Xinglin should be remembered the most in history. Bei Yunj glanced at Nancy. These words were often said to her by Meng Liang in her previous life. Not long after. Before Bei Yunj could speak, she heard Nancy say angrily, "Who does Donner think he is? How dare he threaten me? When I destroyed the entire circle back then, he was still playing with mud somewhere." Bei Yunj, who was walking behind them, was speechless. "Bei Yunj, listen to me. Only those cowardly and incompetent masters would make their disciples behave themselves. What's wrong with my disciple being a little arrogant? Even if you poke a hole in the sky, I have a way to cover it." Nancy was also a hot topic in the circle back then. Because of Nancy, Neely University became the world's top school. Go back first. Come find me at 73 Cliff Road tomorrow. Nancy glanced at her and said, "Master, why don't we have a meal together?" Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. "I still have to deal with something. Let's talk about it tomorrow." Nancy left in a hurry. Bei Yunj looked at Nancy's back with an obscure look in her eyes. Not long after, the corners of her lips curled up again. "Miss Pei, Master Du is here," Tseng Su hurried over again. "Go buy me some drinks. I'm going back to find him now." Bei Yunj nodded. After Tseng Su left, she called Shang Yan. "What's wrong?" Shang Yan was already used to Bei Yunj not visiting him for no reason. Bei Yunj smiled straightforwardly. "President Shang, I seem to have caused some trouble." Shang Yan was speechless. "What did you do?" Shang Yen pressed between his eyebrows. I'm at Continent K Academy. The dean already knows my identity. Bei Yunji's eyes curved as she slowly chewed on the candy, but there was no warmth in her eyes. Find a chance to get the dean to sign a confidentiality agreement. P.S. After today's update, I'll send a red packet. End of chapter. Chapter 1052. Got it. Shang Yen pressed between his eyebrows. Just as he was about to say something, Bei Yunji suddenly saw Huashidu on the phone in the car. She looked at the man's handsome side profile with interest and subconsciously lowered her voice. President Shang, let's talk next time. At this moment, Niayu asked, Sir, did Elder Miss cause trouble again? Shang Yen curled his lips. Yes, go and settle these matters later. Actually, you can let me handle Elder Miss's matter directly. You don't have to. Before Niayu could finish speaking, he noticed Shang Yan's indifferent gaze sweeping over him. Instantly, Niayu fell silent. On campus, Bei Yunji had just knocked on Huashidu's car window when Tsing-Su suddenly called and said that he had not found the way. Bei Yunji's eyelids twitched and she had no choice but to look for Tsing-Su first. However, halfway through the journey, Tsing-Su was very happy. Miss Pei, I've found Master Du. Bei Yunji was speechless. Pei, before Tsing-Su could finish speaking, Bei Yunji hung up the phone and walked back. But not long after, Bei Yunji suddenly saw a beautiful girl standing beside the man's back. The girl blushed and looked at the man shyly. Soon, she tiptoed and wanted to kiss the man's side profile. Bei Yunji raised her eyebrows and her beautiful eyes darkened. She quickly walked to the man's side and gently held the girl's cheek with one hand. She chuckled lazily, her eyes seductive. Classmate, whose person are you kissing? The girl looked up and saw the excessively beautiful girl in front of her. She was stunned for a moment. But soon, she said angrily, who is she? Su Yu, you bastard. Bei Yunji was about to say something when she suddenly realized that something was wrong. Who was this girl scolding? Bei Yunji suddenly had a bad feeling. As expected, she turned around and heard the man's chuckle. Where did this little girl come from? She has a sense of justice. This was not Huashidu's voice at all. Bei Yunji looked up and met Su Yu's eyes. Bei Yunji couldn't be blamed for admitting his mistake. Today, Huashidu was different from usual. He was wearing a smoky gray suit. His posture was tall and straight, and he fully displayed his elegance and arrogance. He was both lustful and refined. Judging from the man's height and the suit he was wearing, it was easy to confuse him from the back. Yun Yun. Suddenly, a low and magnetic voice sounded from not far away. The main character had appeared. Bei Yunji, a short while later. Bei Yunji slowly turned her head and looked at the angry girl in front of her. The two of them looked at each other. Bei Yunji also looked very natural. Then, before the girl could react, Bei Yunji suddenly gave the girl a hug and said politely, sorry for the intrusion. Please continue. After that, Bei Yunji stuffed a few candies into the girl's pocket and quickly left the scene without blushing. The girl, how could he be flirted with by a girl? However, in the next second, the girl's eyes widened when she saw the man Bei Yunji was walking towards. Master Du? What was even more unbelievable to the girl was that the unbelievably beautiful girl had burrowed her head into Huashidu's coat. You've grown up. You even admitted your mistake to me? When Huashidu saw Bei Yunji walking over expressionlessly, the corners of his upturned eyes were filled with amusement. He could not help but find it funny. Yes, it's quite embarrassing. A certain Pei, who was in her arms, sighed and could not help but touch her. End of this chapter. Chapter 1053. After a while, the man's low chuckle drifted into Bei Yunji's ears. It was a little ticklish. Bei Yunji was speechless. Sensing that the person in his arms was messing around, the man quickly pressed her hand down and smiled casually. If you want to, you can do it in the car later. Bei Yunj was speechless. At this moment, Su Yu suddenly smiled and said, "So it's the one from Master Du's family. I've heard of her for a long time." He had been wondering what the person from Master Du's family would be like when Yu Hanran said that she was unruly. He could not guess that she would have such a personality. Su Yu was quite interested. He looked straight at Bei Yunj, but when he sensed Washidu's faint smile, he immediately looked away. This was the first time he knew that Washidu was so possessive of someone. He could not even look at her. "Su Yu, are you very free?" Washidu glanced at him casually. He did not really care that his child had recognized the wrong person. "Master Du, your girl even recognized you wrongly. She doesn't seem to care much about you." Su Yu was not afraid of death. Bei Yunja's eyelids twitched. She did not expect this person to bring trouble to her. Then, Bei Yunj tugged at the man's suit cuffs and coaxed him skillfully. "Brother, if he wasn't wearing a pad, I definitely wouldn't have recognized him wrongly." Su Yu's smile froze. Su Yu was not considered short. His height of 182 centimeters was very proper, but Washidu's height of 187 centimeters made Su Yu feel a little pressured. Therefore, Su Yu would occasionally add a pad. However, he did not expect Bei Yunj to have such sharp eyes. At this moment, Su Yu looked at Washidu and glanced at his shoes. Master Du was too much. "Let's go." The man smiled silently and naturally held his little girl's hand and led her back to the car. Tseng Su drove the car that sent Bei Yunj to K-Continent Academy and left. On the other side, Washidu was sitting in the driver's seat. Bei Yunj was sitting beside him, glancing at the man from time to time. "What do you want to ask?" Washidu asked. "What's the girl's name?" Bei Yunj felt sorry for the girl. "Her name is Su Jihuan." Bei Yunj turned to look at him, but didn't say anything. Su Yu is the adopted son of the Su family. It was decided long ago that he had to marry Su Jihuan. Washidu was not interested in these things and only knew roughly what was going on. Bei Yunj didn't ask any more questions. She could tell that Su Jihuan liked Su Yu very much. But in Su Yu's eyes, there was no trace of Su Jihuan. "Are you interested in Su Jihuan?" the man asked casually. Bei Yunj, what? The man's sexy Adam's apple moved slightly and he chuckled. "If Yunyun likes it, I'll ask the Su family to send her over to play with you tomorrow." Bei Yunj, what a tyrant. "I have to go out tomorrow." The man raised an eyebrow. "How's the inspection today?" Hearing this, Bei Yunj stopped playing with her phone. Not long after, she looked at him with curved eyes. Dr. Luo was a little busy today and didn't have time to do the inspection. "Brother, did you bring me to K-Continent for this inspection?" The man looked at the little girl beside him through the rear-view mirror. Soon, Washidu parked the car at the side and stared at her with his pale-colored eyes. "Yunyun, you don't like it?" Bei Yunj couldn't stand the man's staring gaze and instinctively wanted to open the car door. But the man locked the car even faster. Bei Yunj turned to look at him. End of chapter. Chapter 1054. Solve the problem first before getting out of the car. The man had just picked up the silver lighter when he thought of the person beside him. He could only throw it aside and lean back lazily. Bei Yunj also insisted. "I want to get out of the car and solve the problem later." The man glanced at her with his pale-colored eyes. After a few seconds, his gaze swept across the surrounding buildings. He chuckled. "That's fine too." Before Bei Yunj could get out of the car, she heard the man say slowly, "If you really want to get out of the car, let's go to the hotel next door and get a suite to talk." Bei Yunj, Washidu also noticed that Bei Yunj was against this physical examination. However, if he really let her get out of the car, he was indeed afraid that Bei Yunj would avoid him in the future. Bei Yunj licked her red lips. The emotions in her eyes flickered. She looked very calm, but her fingertips were slightly white as she gripped her sleeves. In an instant, the complicated and frustrated emotions in her heart surged into the dark side that she had been trying her best to suppress. Soon, Bei Yunj looked up at the man. Most of the coldness and frustration in her heart disappeared, leaving only uneasiness and loneliness. She lowered her head and tried to sound him out. "Brother, to you, I'm not your pet, right?" As soon as she finished speaking. For a moment, Huashidu wanted to throw this child out. The atmosphere was silent for a while. The man looked out of the car window, loosened his tie with one hand, and unbuttoned his collar. Then, a soft laugh that sounded like a mocking laugh floated into Bei Yunj's ears. Bei Yunj, this seemed to be the first time she saw Huashidu angry. Bei Yunj was about to organize her words when the man suddenly turned around and leaned towards her. He lifted her chin with one hand and narrowed his eyes carelessly as he looked at her face carefully. Bei Yunj looked into the man's dark eyes, which seemed to contain a terrifying aggressiveness. His posture was still light as he sneered, "I look like I have a fetish for beasts, Yun." After a while, Bei Yunj, who had just regained her senses, who was he scolding? Huashidu glanced at Bei Yunj, who was silent. "All right, I have to drive." "Big brother," Bei Yunj was about to say something when Huashidu reached out without turning his head and pulled down her loose hoodie to cover Bei Yunj's face. "Be quiet for a while." Bei Yunj, who couldn't see clearly, it was obvious that this person was really angry. Back at the manor, Zhong Xinglin's phone could not be reached for the time being, so Bei Yunj could only call Si Chengyan. "He doesn't know about this, does he?" Bei Yunj held the watering can in one hand, but her eyes were not on the expensive flowers. Si Chengyan was silent for a while. "Old master probably didn't tell your husband, but why don't you want to tell him? Isn't the one in your family good enough for you?" He had seen Mr. Hua a few times. He was handsome and noble, a classic example of a gentleman who could charm young girls to death. He almost doted on Bei Yunj until she was in a mess. Bei Yunj's hand, which was holding the watering can, paused for a moment before she smiled slowly and said, "I feel inferior." "Can't I?" "Who the hell would believe that you felt inferior?" Si Chengyan rolled his eyes. "If you don't want to say it, then don't. I'm busy too." "All right, then I'll go coax him." Bei Yunj answered and really hung up the call. Si Chengyan? Was this something a human would do? A second ago, she thought that it was a sadistic love drama, but the next second, she was coaxing a man? P.S. Master Pei's illness was also the reason why Master Pei felt inferior in her previous life. Because she really liked Master Du, she tore open a dark side of her. But she wouldn't torture him. She would heal him. Our Master Pei would eat the sweetest candy and like the best people. Master Pei, as long as I'm not a person with a sweet mouth, sadomasochism won't be able to catch up to me. Continue to do it at night. End of this chapter. Chapter 1055. At the door of the study. The moment Zhou Yu came over, he saw Bei Yunj leaning against the wall. He was surprised. "What are you standing here for?" "Nothing." After Bei Yunj finished speaking, she looked at Zhou Yu and said, "Assistant Zhou, I seem to have made your Master Du angry." Zhou Yu looked at Bei Yunj's gaze and knew that Bei Yunj was asking him to help her come up with an idea. To be honest, no one dared to make Master Du angry. Zhou Yu thought about it and suddenly felt that something was wrong. How could Master Du bear to be angry with Miss Pei? If Miss Pei acted coquettishly, Master Du would even be willing to pluck the moon for her. Soon, Bei Yunj felt that the way Zhou Yu looked at her had changed, as if he was looking at a scumbag. His gaze was filled with accusation and disbelief. Bei Yunj, it was a pity that Huashidu's two assistants did not perform crosstalk. Suddenly, The phone in Zhou Yu's pocket vibrated. He bowed slightly to Bei Yunj and smiled politely. Miss Pei, I'm sorry. Master Du is looking for me. Bei Yunj, in the study. Master Du, Zhou Yu called out. After thinking for a moment, he said carefully, Miss Pei is waiting at the door. Huashidu glanced at him casually. You want to call her in? Zhou Yu immediately shut up. For a moment, Zhou Yu wanted to know what Miss Pei had done. There's something going on in Continent K's academy. Go and settle it. Huashidu threw the documents to Zhou Yu. Let their director sign this agreement. Hearing this, Zhou Yu instinctively walked closer and picked up the contract on the desk. He opened it and saw that it was a confidentiality agreement. Zhou Yu was one of the few people who knew Bei Yunj's true identity. He was slightly surprised. Director Donner knows about it? He reported it. Huashidu's slender index finger tapped on the table gently. His voice was calm, but Zhou Yu felt a chill. Zhou Yu felt a chill down his spine. Dean Donner was too bold. He knew how important this was to Country A, so he didn't provoke them on the surface. Instead, he leaked this information to the higher-ups. He could also fight for some benefits for himself. However, what Tang Dina didn't expect was that this message would be sent to Huashidu. Understood. I'll get the dean to sign this document. Zhou Yu nodded. Then, Huashidu asked unhurriedly, I heard that there's a vice principal of K Continent Academy who is from Country A? Zhou Yu was stunned for a moment. Soon, he bowed slightly to Huashidu. Yes, Director Donner has reached the age where he should delegate power. After that, Zhou Yu sighed in his heart. What kind of bewitching potion did Miss Pei cast on Master Du? Next. Before Zhou Yu could regain his senses, he heard the man ask casually, She's been outside for so long. Aren't you going to let her in? Zhou Yu, a short while later. Bei Yunj saw Zhou Yu come out with a document in his hand. Miss Pei, please go in. Zhou Yu forced a smile. Brother, have you calmed down? Bei Yunj hesitated. Zhou Yu's smile cracked slightly. After a while, Bei Yunj pushed open the door of the study and saw the man inside reading a document. A pair of gold-rimmed glasses rested on the bridge of his nose. His collar was loose and casual. He was so lazy and sexy that it made people blush and their hearts race. Looking for me? Bei Yunj didn't speak for a long time. The man's low and magnetic voice sounded unhurriedly. P.S. More in the morning. Good night. End of chapter. Chapter 1056. Bei Yunj regained her senses. Even the words she had organized outside were disrupted by her thoughts. Brother, before Bei Yunj could finish speaking, the phone in her pocket suddenly vibrated. Who would insist on calling at this time? Bei Yunj took it out and saw that it was a call from Si Chengyan. Her eyebrows moved as she glanced at Huashidu and quickly answered the call. Before she could speak, she heard Si Chengyan ask, Yunj, is your third brother all right? Bei Yunj's eyes moved. What's wrong? Don't tell me you don't know that your third brother is competing in Continent K and lost just now? Si Chengyan immediately asked when he heard this. It was only then that Bei Yunj remembered that Qin Lang had said that there was a competition recently. He lost? Bei Yunj's eyes darkened. According to the previous trend, Qin Lang had never competed in Continent K. And the first time he lost, it was because his hand was injured. Yeah, I think something happened at the venue. Not only did Qin Lang lose the competition, he was also injured. I don't know if it's serious. Hearing this, Bei Yunj licked her red lips and was silent for a moment before she asked, Where's the address? After getting the address and hanging up the call, Bei Yunj noticed that the man had been looking at her. Are you going out? The man asked first. For a moment, Bei Yunj felt like she was no longer human. Bei Yunj nodded. Who knew, after a while, she heard the man say slowly, "I thought you were here to coax me." Bei Yunj was speechless. Soon. In the back seat. Bei Yunj looked at the man beside her from time to time. However, the man was sitting upright with a book in his hand. His handsome eyes were light and calm, but he did not look at her. Suddenly. "Brother, is the book that good?" Bei Yunja's beautiful eyes curved as she leaned over and asked with a smile, "Why don't you look at me more?" Huashidu saw the young lady coming over and gently pressed his fingers against her head. But a certain someone, who had always been experienced, rubbed her forehead against his finger like a spoiled child. Before he could react, the book in the man's hand was snatched away. Bei Yunj flipped through a few pages and raised her eyebrows. "You don't look as good as me." After saying this, Bei Yunja's book was taken away by a slender and beautiful hand. "We're here." The car had just stopped, and the man's unhurried voice sounded. "Bei Yunj, all right, I'll have to coax her next time." However, before Bei Yunj could get out of the car, someone suddenly grabbed her waist from behind. The world spun and Bei Yunja's back was suddenly pressed against a warm chest. "Brother?" Before she could regain her senses, her face was covered by something furry. The tip of her nose was filled with the unique cold and pleasant scent of a man. Huashidu reached out and pulled down the scarf, revealing the little girl's exquisite face. "All right, you can go out now." Bei Yunj unconsciously curled the corners of her lips. "Brother, you're still so nice to me even when you're angry?" Huashidu glanced at her. He was already used to a certain someone's insatiable behavior. He sneered softly, and his magnetic and lazy voice sounded casually, "Didn't you already have me under your thumb?" In the stadium. Bei Yunj had just reached the door when she was stopped. "Miss, this is the preliminary round. The audience seats are not open. Only the insiders can." Before the attendant could finish speaking, he saw a girl wearing a white hat swiping the black card in her hand on the magnetic card machine. After being doted on by the big shots, I'm wild, /book/83224/. Chapter 1057. Very soon. The barricade door opened automatically, and even the sound of the manager's announcement could be heard. However, the security guard did not notice all this. He only knew that this was an internal member. "Where are Qin Lang and the rest?" The girl lowered the brim of her hat and only her sharp chin could be seen. "Miss, they're still backstage." "I'll bring you there." After the security guard came back to his senses, he immediately brought her over. "Backstage? What do you all mean? Almighty Qin was injured because of you. What kind of attitude is that?" Bei Yunj had just entered when she heard the confrontation inside. "He's obviously not as good as others. I finally know why Almighty Qin has never lost a competition." Before the staff could speak, another person in a blue uniform sneered. "As long as he loses the competition, he can push the blame to others. Isn't that enough? You." The hot-tempered team member was about to say something when the coach beside him immediately stopped him. "That's enough." Then, the coach looked at that person. "Xiaoji, you and Almighty Qin are not on good terms. Watch your words and actions." After watching the show, Xiaoji sneered contemptuously and left. Qin Lang had been popular in the esports scene for so many years. It was time for him to be replaced. "Almighty Qin, I'm very sorry. This time, it was our people's mistake that caused you to be injured. However, this competition can't be delayed. Do you want to change people?" the organizer asked. If it wasn't for the fact that their referee team had an anti-fan, Qin Lang wouldn't have been injured. However, even if it was because of the organizer's mistake, they wouldn't suspend the competition because of this accident. After all, it wasn't easy for the team under EG Corporation to win against Qin Lang. Of course, they wouldn't want to let go of this opportunity. "What are you doing? If it wasn't for the organizers, my almighty Qin would. Before the other team member could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Qin Lang. Gu, Everyone turned and saw Bei Yunj standing not far away. She responded faintly and walked towards them. Sister Qin is really good. How could she recognize you when you're dressed so tightly? The team member muttered in disbelief. Bei Yunj sized up Qin Lang's bandaged hand and asked, "Is your hand okay?" Even Qin Lang's voice became gentler. "It's okay. The doctor said that she'll be fine after a few days." Gu, why are you incontinent K? Almighty Qin, why are you talking nonsense? The doctor clearly said that if we don't treat her as soon as possible, sooner or later. Before the team member could finish, he felt Qin Lang's cold gaze and immediately shut his mouth. "I'm here to take a look around the K-Continent Academy." Bei Yunj was silent for a moment. "Why don't you come back with me today?" "I'm afraid that won't do. Almighty Qin has to stay in the place arranged by the organizers, or else." Before the staff member could finish speaking, their eyes met with Bei Yunj's languid and beautiful eyes. But at this moment, they were unbelievably cold. What's going on? Suddenly, a clear and cold voice attracted everyone's attention. Everyone turned around and saw a woman in a purple suit walking over. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows as she recognized this person. Jiang Ji. Director Jiang, something happened to Godly Qin's team, the staff explained to Jiang Ji in a low voice. Jiang Ji also quickly recognized Bei Yunj. Jealousy flashed across her eyes and she unconsciously clenched her fists. She didn't understand why Cui Hengchuan had to have this woman. Jiang Ji smiled again. "Miss Pei, we meet again." End of chapter. Chapter 1058. Bei Yunj smirked. "No wonder you dared to do such a business in Yuncheng. It turns out that Miss Jiang's roots are in Continent K, so President Jiang and this lady know each other." The staff immediately smiled apologetically. "Miss Pei, although we know each other, I can't do such unfair things for you, right? You can understand this, right?" After Jiang Ji finished speaking with a smile, she seemed to have vented her anger and looked down at Bei Yunj. Everyone had thought that the two of them were old acquaintances. But now, it seemed like they had been holding grudges for a long time. "Gu, I'll settle this." "You wait in the lounge." Before Qin Lang could finish, Bei Yunj interrupted him. "Go back and rest first." For a moment, the atmosphere was tense. Even Qin Lang's team members felt that Almighty Qin's sister was too arbitrary and domineering. She wanted Almighty Qin to rest. Could she settle it? Or did she think that someone would delay the competition for her sake? Gu, before Qin Lang could finish, he met his sister's eyes and immediately shut his mouth. After a while, Qin Lang could only nod and use his eyes to signal the other team members to calm Bei Yunj down and not let her be impulsive. After they left, Bei Yunj's smile disappeared and her beautiful eyes were filled with hostility. "Why? Do you think that you don't have to take responsibility for hurting my family?" After she finished speaking, everyone was stunned. They didn't expect Bei Yunj to pursue the matter with the organizers. The staff members were in the wrong. Jiang Ji smiled and said, "Miss Pei, what compensation do you want?" "Miss Jiang, do you think you have the status to negotiate with me?" Bei Yunj sneered softly. She raised her eyebrows and sat down in her seat. Before she came, Bei Yunj had already contacted someone. Now she just had to wait. As expected, Jiang Ji's face had already darkened. The staff beside her was even more sarcastic. "Miss Pei, who do you think you can get to negotiate with? It doesn't matter if Almighty Qin wants to compete or not. The maps of the gods can still be played without him. If you know what's good for you, you can still stay and watch the competition. If you don't know what's good for you, then I can only ask you to leave." Hearing this, Jiang Ji's complexion improved slightly. Jiang Ji smiled. Miss Pei, I understand that you're in a bad mood, but rules are rules. How can they be changed so easily? The staff member patted his collar and glanced at Bei Yunj with disdain. If there's nothing else, I'll let Almighty Qin continue the competition. Hearing this, the team members couldn't help but look at Bei Yunj. However, there was no movement from Bei Yunj. It seemed like she was here to throw a tantrum, but Qin Lang was a real siscon. However, unexpectedly, before the staff left, a man in a suit and leather shoes suddenly appeared in everyone's line of sight, panting. This person looks very familiar. Everyone was discussing. Suddenly, someone recognized him. It's Mr. Colin from the Delaney Group. Why would this person appear here? Jiang Ji couldn't help but look at Colin in disbelief. This was the general manager of the Delaney Group's Continent K branch. Normally, even she wouldn't have the chance to see him. Mr. Colin, how did you? When the staff saw Colin, his smiling face immediately changed. However, Colin didn't pay attention to anyone. Instead, he tidied up his suit and immediately walked in front of Bei Yunj. Miss Pei, sorry to keep you waiting. End of chapter. Chapter 1059. Bei Yunj looked at her watch and did not say anything else. Instead, she curled her lips with interest. Colin, this stadium belongs to Delaney, right? Colin nodded. Yes, Mississippi, he immediately smiled. If you like it, I believe Mr. Delaney is willing to give it to you. Hearing this, the staff member's smile stiffened. He suddenly had a bad feeling, indeed. The next moment, Bei Yunj curled her lips. Mr. Colin, you don't have to be so polite. However, I do want to borrow this land for a few days. Colin could not help but ask, Miss Pei, why are you suddenly interested in the stadium? I'm not too interested. Bei Yunj laughed lazily. I'm afraid that someone will chase me out. You must be joking. Although the people who have been setting up the stadium these few days are all from EG Corporation. But if EG Corporation really dares to chase you out, aren't they afraid that Mr. Vic will pursue the matter? As soon as she finished speaking, the staff member's heart trembled and he instantly felt weak. Mr. Vic, that was the founder of EG Corporation. What was the background of Almighty Qin's sister? She got Mr. Colin to receive her and even had contact with Mr. Vic? At this moment, only Qin Lang and the vice-captain of Vic's team, who had missed the competition but had met him at the auction, knew a little about the inside story. After a while, Colin seized the time to gain her favor. Don't worry, Miss Pei. As long as you're willing, the right to use this venue will belong to you. Everyone heard Bei Yunj's interested voice and said lazily, okay, then I'll have to consider if I should chase you out. The staff member's face turned green and he almost fainted. He did not expect things to turn around like this. The situation was obvious now. The organizer was not the one who could chase them out, but Bei Yunj. If Bei Yunj was even a little unhappy, she could kick all of them out of the door at any time. Jiang Ji was the first to panic. She gritted her teeth. This land was rented to EG Corporation by the Delaney Group. How can you give it to others just like that? Colin frowned and glanced at Jiang Ji unhappily. However, he smiled generously. Miss, you probably don't know that EG Group has never rented our land. Because of Mr. Vic, it had been used by EG Corporation for free all these years. Of course, if Miss Pei wants it too, we'll consider you first. This was also what Delaney had instructed him before he came. As long as it was related to Bei Yunj, no matter what, they had to side with Bei Yunj. He had to coax the god of fortune. At this moment, Jiang Ji's face alternated between red and green, and the staff stuttered, Mr. Colin, our Maps of the Gods competition is only halfway through, how can we, I'm sorry, but we need Miss Pei's approval. Colin smiled. My mission this time is to assist Miss Pei. The staff member looked like he was about to cry. Jiangji gritted her teeth and looked at Bei Yunj. She didn't know where this woman got her connections from. Bei Yunj curled her lips and walked slowly in front of Jiangji. Her eyes were unruly, but her voice was gentle. Boss Jiang might not be used to it yet. In my place, I'm the rule. Everyone, you can also consider whether it's better to play here or be thrown out. Bei Yunj unwrapped the candy and smiled slowly. End of chapter. Chapter 1060. The staff member's body stiffened. After a long time, he could only bow to Bei Yunj. Miss Pei, I'll go ask our manager first. Jiangji bit her lip and stared at Bei Yunj with red eyes. However, not long after, the manager hurried over. After nodding slightly to Colin, he also looked at Bei Yunj. The manager bowed slightly. Miss Pei, I'm sorry I didn't have time to find you just now. My surname is Yang. When Bei Yunj swiped the card and came in, there was news in the manager's office. But Bei Yunj left so quickly that he didn't know who had the senior management card. Manager Yang. Bei Yunj nodded. Manager Yang immediately smiled. Miss Pei, I'm very sorry about Almighty Qin's injury. Since it was your request to delay the competition, we naturally have no objections. But the longest delay can't be more than 7 days. I hope Miss Pei can understand. During this period, Almighty Qin can freely change his team members. I understand. I'll take him to check on his injury first. Bei Yunj glanced at Manager Yang. As for the person who deliberately hurt him, I also hope the organizers can give me a satisfactory result. Miss Pei, don't worry. I hope your friendship with Mr. Vic will not be affected by these things. As soon as he finished speaking, Colin couldn't help but look at Manager Yang. Old colleagues. They were all here to coax the god of fortune. At this moment, Qin Lang's team members were all in a daze. They didn't expect that the competition could really be delayed. Miss Pei's network was heaven-defying. In the end, when the delay was announced, everyone was shocked, including the members of these teams. And EG Group's way of handling it was very humane. In these 7 days, all the members of the competition would enjoy the best treatment at the top hotel and would also be given a team consolation fee as compensation. In the laboratory, Luo Xie's eyelids twitched. After hearing Tseng Su's message, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. What's the matter? Asked a handsome man with shoulder-length blonde hair beside her. There's a patient today. Luo Xie pressed between his eyebrows. He didn't expect that Miss Pei would use him so easily. Yo, don't you always have Sunday off? There are still people who dare to give you patients? The blonde man asked with a smile. You'll soon know who dares to give it to me. Luo Xie sneered. With Huashidu around, he could not refuse at all. Soon, everyone saw a handsome young man with short silver hair and a girl with long curly hair appear in front of them. Miss Pei, you're quite bold. How dare you bring anyone to my laboratory? In an instant, Luo Xie's eyes were full of thought. Wasn't Bei Yunj afraid that he would tell Huashidu? She actually brought a man to his place. This is my third brother Qin Lang. His hand is injured. Please take a look at him, Dr. Luo. Bei Yunj tried to sound polite. Luo Xie looked at Qin Lang with some surprise. Although they didn't look alike at all, he was still a handsome young man. Is this your friend? Qin Lang turned around and asked. Bei Yunj, no. Luo Xie's eyelids twitched. Mr. Qin, come with me for a checkup first, another member in a white coat said. Qin Lang nodded and followed him in. Soon, Luo Xie pursed his lips. Miss Pei, I won't be seeing patients today. Bei Yunj gestured for him to look at the computer. The contract for the import of the latest batch of medical equipment from Stevens Research Institute has been sent to Dr. Luo's email. P.S. Good night, end of chapter. Chapter 1061. With that said, Wuxia froze and stared at Bai Yunj for a while before he got up and went in. On the other hand, the blond man followed beside Wuxia excitedly, but his eyes were fixed on Bai Yunj. Wuxia, don't you think that girl is very beautiful? Of course. Wuxia glanced at him coldly. If she wasn't beautiful, how could this woman be so bewitching? The blond man suddenly poked his shoulder. Wuxia, I have something I need your help with. Hearing this, Wuxia looked at him. Soon. It's not the first time Mr. Qin's hand has been injured. He needs to be hospitalized. Wuxia glanced at Bai Yunj. I have a temporary hospital. I can arrange for him to go there. How long will it take? Bai Yunj raised an eyebrow. If the surgery is successful, it will take at least 3 months. I will arrange 3 surgeries for him. Before the second surgery, he can't compete no matter what, Wuxia said calmly. Hearing this, Bai Yunj frowned. What about Qin Lang's competition? The blond man beside him poked Wuxia anxiously with his elbow. Only then did Wuxia frown and glance at his friend unhappily. In the end, Wuxia had no choice but to ask, does Miss Pei have time? Bai Yunj glanced at the two of them. I have something on tomorrow. You can do it today too. The blond man said happily. After noticing Bai Yunj's gaze, Wuxia could only explain, my friend is a director and has recently been hired for a perfume commercial. He wants you to be the female lead. The blond man could not help but glare at Wuxia, blaming him for introducing himself too casually. He immediately introduced himself with a smile. Miss Pei, I'm Brennan, the director of our nation. My films have won 3 Mayork Awards. The Mayork Awards were the highest award in the film industry. If it was Qin Yu, he would definitely recognize this famous director, Brennan, who had created countless best actors and best actresses. Brennan stared at her with bright eyes and asked urgently, excuse me, Miss Pei, do you have any thoughts of acting? In his opinion, not only was Bai Yunj stunning, but she was also very intelligent. She was obviously beautiful and languid, but when she raised her eyebrows, she was in high spirits. This was the type he had never met before. He was also confident that with Bai Yunj as the female lead, they would be able to produce the most stunning youthful literary film. No. Brennan, the rejection was very straightforward, without any pleasantries. Then how about an advertisement? Is that all right, Miss Pei? Brennan looked at her pitifully. He still wanted to try Bai Yunj's talent. If he really had the talent, it wouldn't be too late for him to pester him. Bai Yunj glanced at him indifferently. Brennan also hinted to Wuxia to help persuade him. He was a famous director, yet he had to shamelessly do such a thing. Wuxia could only say, Miss Pei, my friend is obsessed with acting. If you don't agree to shoot the advertisement, he might follow you in the middle of the night. Brennan's smile froze. Bai Yunj, soon. The corners of Bai Yunj's lips curled up. Sure. Can Dr. Luo help me with the matter I troubled you with last time? Wuxia suddenly remembered that Bai Yunj had asked him to help fool Huashidu. He would dare to do this? Wuxia, you don't even dare to agree to a young lady's request. Are you still a man? Seeing that there was hope for his advertisement, Brennan immediately punched Wuxia. Wuxia was speechless. Was this young lady's request normal? End of chapter. Chapter 1062. Miss Pei, don't worry. I'll agree on his behalf. There's definitely no problem. Brennan immediately patted his chest and promised. Wuxia wanted to speak, but Brennan quickly covered his mouth. Since we're brothers, I'll help you. What's wrong? Wuxia's expression turned ugly. After Qin Lang came out, he was immediately arranged to be hospitalized nearby for treatment. Brennan also rushed Wuxia to do a further examination for Qin Lang. On the other hand, Pei Yunj and Brennan went to a nearby hotel. In just half an hour, the equipment and cameras were all ready. "Miss Pei, why don't you change your clothes first?" Brennan smiled, but his hands were nervously rubbing. "Okay." Pei Yunj sent Huashidu the last location message. "Miss Pei, are you looking for someone to bring you home?" "Actually, I can send you home." Brennan was very enthusiastic. "No need." After Pei Yunj finished speaking, she followed the makeup artist and walked in. Brennan did not feel defeated. Instead, his eyes lit up as he looked at Pei Yunj. "Director, this person has a bad temper. Where did you hire her?" Someone sighed. "Really? I think she's quite cool. It wasn't easy for me to hire her. You guys have to work harder." Brennan snorted. He had a feeling that this advertisement would be popular. The others were speechless. Was this the God's face filter? 20 minutes later. Everyone finally knew why Brennan's filter was so big. Brennan had actually taken on this advertisement for more than half a year. However, he had interviewed artistes of all sizes, from international movie actresses to theater students. No one could meet Brennan's high standards. This made everyone feel that Brennan was too stubborn. How could anyone have a God's face that walked out of a painting? But at this moment, the staff members of the advertisement shoot looked at the person walking over and felt that their faces were slapping, regardless of gender. When they saw this scene with their own eyes, their eyes almost popped out. In the beginning, Brennan had defined the theme of this perfume as purity and desire. Simply put, it was high-class and sexy. Hence, he had not considered Asians. The clothes he prepared were also more palatial. However, when he saw Pei Yunj, Brennan vaguely felt that the girl in front of him could break his fixed thinking. Therefore, he quickly contacted a friend who was a collector and sent over his favorite sandalwood folding fan. It turned out that his intuition was right. He looked at the girl in front of him. Her black hair was wet, and water droplets slid down her slender and fair neck to her loose collar. However, she didn't show any emotion. Her pair of lazy and bright eyes contained a distant playfulness. Instead, she had an aura that made people unable to get close to her. Pei Yunj was only wearing a long, translucent robe that clung to her body after getting wet. Her slender and beautiful hands were holding a folding fan, but the staff had already made sure that there was no risk of her being exposed. "How are we going to film this?" Pei Yunja's tone was still lazy. She lowered her eyes and played with the folding fan in her hand. As for the female staff member who was in close contact with him, when she saw that the person in front of her had wet eyelashes, she inexplicably felt her face turn hot. This was too much. The current female Gu King was killing people online? Brennan coughed softly. He didn't dare to go near Pei Yunj. Instead, he sat in front of the equipment and explained the details of the shoot through the microphone. It wasn't only Brennan. The others also didn't dare to look at Pei Yunj. Where did this demoness come from? If they took another look, their hearts would uncontrollably race. End of chapter. Chapter 1063. Pei Yunj was very perceptive. After hearing this, she followed Brennan's instructions and stood in the fountain of the goddess statue. Behind her was a magnificent dome hall, and the moonlight was hazy. However, Pei Yunj leaned against the statue of the goddess and raised her eyebrows lazily with a folding fan. The water droplets that sprinkled on the ground were even more eye-catching than the moonlight and the statue of the goddess. At this moment, the people not far away happened to see this scene. The girl leaned against the pool. The surface of the pool was sparkling. The statue of the goddess, the moonlight, and her intertwined into an unforgettable scene. If this was in a movie, it would definitely be a classic. Cut. Brennan was extremely excited. "Miss Pei, you're too smart." A newbie who was filming for the first time could actually pass in one take. She was too talented. Miss Pei, it's a pity that you're not in the industry. Brennan said impatiently, as if he had discovered an excellent piece of unpolished jade and couldn't wait to let everyone know. But then, Bei Yunj saw a man not far away. Her eyes curved. Brother. Brennan immediately perked up. Miss Pei's brother? Bei Yunj did not agree, but if Bei Yunj's brother had thought it through, then he was not far from success. Brennan could not wait to turn his head, but when he met the man who was still holding a cigarette in his hand, his smile froze. How could it be Master Du? Bei Yunj had just put on a towel and walked to Huashidu's side. After the man exhaled a faint mist, his pale-colored eyes finally landed on her, and the darkness in his eyes disappeared. Do you like acting? Bei Yunj smiled and said, just so. Hearing this, he reached out and brushed the wet hair on her neck. His tone was light and calm, but he seemed to be restraining himself. Go and dry your hair. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. She did not notice that the man's voice was hoarse with desire. She followed the staff back to change her clothes. Brennan, who had always liked to capture people's emotions, felt Huashidu's emotions for the first time. This wasn't any other kind of feeling. It was the most primitive and straightforward desire that a man had for a woman. Master Du, you, Brennan stiffened, not knowing how to ask. The man was already looking at him with a faint smile. His well-proportioned hand under the sleeve of his suit slowly extinguished the cigarette butt. Brennan, did you find my subordinate for the actor you're looking for? Brennan was instantly petrified. Master Du, I don't know, Wuxia didn't tell him that Miss Pei was Master Du's woman. But now, even if they didn't want to, they had already done it. It was also the first time Brennan had been so bold. He braced himself and smiled obsequiously at Huashidu. Master Du, Miss Pei is really talented in acting. Look at the filming just now. Isn't it very lively? The corner of Tseng Su's mouth twitched. Was Brennan crazy? At this point, they were still thinking about letting Miss Pei enter the industry? I don't want anything from this shoot to be leaked. Huashidu glanced at him and said slowly, I can arrange a suitable actor for you. Brennan's eyes widened in disbelief. No, Master Du, this is a work of art. How can you? The man's lips curled up noncommittally as he asked lightly, is that so? When Brennan heard this, he thought that he had a chance to fight for it, but he didn't expect the next sentence. Then give me the original and delete the rest. End of chapter. Chapter 1064. Brennan was speechless. When she came out, Bei Yunj saw Brennan's depressed expression and raised her eyebrows subconsciously. Mr. Brennan, if there's no problem, I'll go back first, Bei Yunj said. Brennan forced a smile. Goodbye, Miss Pei. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and looked at Huashidu thoughtfully. In the car, Bei Yunj sent a message to Brennan before she found out what Huashidu had done. Brother, you don't like me filming advertisements? Bei Yunj curled her lips and asked subconsciously. Actually, Bei Yunj had never liked to appear in public. In her previous life, other than the necessary award ceremonies, she would occasionally appear and never pay attention to anything else. Brennan's image is not suitable for you. The Hua family had always taught the men in the family to respect women. If Bei Yunj really liked filming, Huashidu would respect her opinion. However, when Huashidu was present and saw the other men at the filming venue staring straight at his little girl, he could not help but do so. He even had the urge to teach Brennan a lesson. After living for more than 20 years, Huashidu did not expect himself to have such a strange time. Brother, you don't like it? Bei Yunj's eyes were filled with pity. Huashidu glanced at her and knew that Bei Yunj still did not know that her original copy was in his hands. Huashidu's eyes darkened when he thought of the scene by the pool. Even his fingertips moved unnaturally, and the veins on the back of his hand were faintly discernible. Then, suddenly, Bei Yunj's call broke the atmosphere. Teacher, when did you go to Continent K? After Vic found out about the competition venue, he immediately called his god of fortune to ask about it. These 2 days. Bei Yunja's tone did not indicate whether she was in a good mood. Vic was still uneasy. Then Mr. Qin's injury, is it all right? Bei Yunj chuckled, but her voice was cold. He needs 3 operations and will need at least 3 months of treatment. Does Mr. Vic think it's all right? Vic, sure enough, he still provoked her. Bei Yunja's tone was indifferent. Right now, I want to know how the competition will proceed. Qin Lang viewed the competition as more important than his life. Mr. Qin, this was a sudden accident, and it was also caused by our organizers, so I have no opinion on who you change. Vic immediately said. Bei Yunj thought of something. Is there a vice-captain of RS who didn't come? Isn't Mr. Qin's vice-captain hospitalized? He probably can't replace Mr. Qin. Bei Yunj, why is this RS team full of sick people? Suddenly, Vic hinted again, actually, it's fine even if you're not from the original team. Bei Yunj thought that it was a good idea. You want me to poach people from other teams? I didn't make you lose your dignity. Vic immediately said, can't you? Bei Yunj, after hanging up the phone. Bei Yunj glanced at the man who was reading a book beside her. Seeing that he did not say a word, she thought that Hushidu was still ignoring her because of what she said. Brother? Bei Yunj called out. The man did not look up at her. What's wrong? Bei Yunj did not expect that the first thing that could make her so unhappy would be a book. Suddenly, Bei Yunj placed one hand on a certain someone's book and looked at Hushidu with curved eyes. P.S. Chapter 1065. Brother, I think I lost my hair tie. Hushidu glanced at the smiling little girl, as if he was looking at a cat that wanted to play with him. Not long after, the man reached out and took out a new hair tie. Bei Yunj often dropped this thing, so Hushidu often prepared 2 or 3 in the car. Sit over here. Hushidu casually placed the book on his lap. When Bei Yunj came closer, he noticed that the little girl did not dare to get too close. He sneered and his playful tone was a little muddled. Why? Are you afraid now? Before Bei Yunj could speak, the man suddenly seemed to be very close to her. His magnetic and smiling voice sounded in her ear, tickling her ear. Turn around. Her back was facing the man. Before she could react, the man bit the hair tie gently and his gaze landed on her. Then, his slender and well-defined fingers stroked her slightly curly long hair. His actions were surprisingly gentle. Bei Yunj paused. For a moment, she did not expect the man to tie her hair. The man rolled up his sleeves elegantly, revealing a small section of his cold and fair wrist. The scene of him tying the little girl's hair with his eyes lowered was even more pleasing to the eye. It was obviously Hushidu's first time tying a ponytail for the little girl. It was a little low, but the effect was not bad. After he was done, Bei Yunj was about to speak when the man suddenly reached out and gently pinched the back of her neck. His low and hoarse voice was unbelievably sexy. It's time to behave, Yunyun. Bei Yunja's ears inexplicably heated up. When the little girl lowered her head just now, her collar was loose. From behind, he could clearly see the little girl's clear collarbone in front of her and the scenery below her fair neck. However, Hushidu quickly avoided the places that he should not look at. The man's eyes were half hidden. For the time being, he did not want to scare this child. After returning, Bei Yunj returned to her bedroom because of a phone call. However, she did not notice that Hushidu had gone back to take a cold shower first. In the study room, Master Du, Cui Hengchuan has come to Continent K. We've confirmed that it was indeed Director Donner who gave him the news, Zhou Yu said. Since we're already here, let's get ready to close the net. Hushidu wiped his wrist and said casually, but his eyes were filled with danger. However, in the bedroom, Bei Yunj could not help but frown when she heard Vic say that Qin Lang insisted on competing. Qin Lang rested for 7 days. If he forced himself to endure, he could indeed compete with injuries, but the result was not optimistic. Whether it was the competition or the injuries. Are you really not going to replace Sai? Vic asked cautiously. Bei Yunj sneered, I'm not a professional player. Then you plan to let Mr. Qin participate in the competition? In Continent K, it's not that easy to poach. Vic immediately said in disbelief. Bei Yunj hung up after saying that. I'll think of another way. But what Vic didn't expect was, for some reason, Bei Yunj made another call. Hello? Coach, how come you have time to call me? The captain of the HK Esports Club under EG Corporation could not help but be excited. Bei Yunj thought for a moment. I have something to ask you. What is it? Bei Yunj, are you interested in joining the RS team? The HK captain, does the boss know that you're so crazy to poach people? The next day. Continent K Academy. Director Zhou, Donner never thought that this matter would actually make Zhou Yu come over. After being doted on by the big shots, I've gone wild, /book/83224/. Chapter 1066. How did YG get involved with that person? Donner's expression did not look too good, but he did not dare to offend Zhou Yu. Book/36649/. Do you remember what I just said to the director? Zhou Yu smiled politely, but the emotions in his eyes sent chills down one's spine. After Donner came back to his senses, he nodded with some lingering fear. Director Zhou, I understand. That's good. Zhou Yu nodded. However, just as Donner heaved a sigh of relief, Zhou Yu handed him a very familiar agreement. Oh right, there's another agreement that you need to sign. After Donner opened it, his expression was particularly ugly. This was YG's confidentiality agreement. But in front of Zhou Yu, he could only slowly pick up the agreement with trembling hands and sign it. After passing it to Zhou Yu, he heard him laugh. Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Donner. But there's another piece of news that you should receive very soon. This is Sir's return gift to you. With that said, Zhou Yu left very quickly. Not long after Donner guessed, he received a notice and his face instantly turned pale. He had been unanimously decided by the school board to remove him from the position of director. Donner's pupils constricted violently as if all the strength in his body had been drained. His eyes were unfocused as he sat there paralyzed. How could this be? Could it be that person who did it? Donner recalled Zhou Yu's return gift and his expression became even more fearful. His face turned ashen again. That person must have found out. He had already leaked YG's matter. Donner fell into endless regret and pain. Why did he have to provoke YG in the first place? Just as they arrived at the place where Nancy had agreed to meet, Bei Yunj heard Nancy say in puzzlement, That's strange. I haven't even started to deal with him. Why has Donner been removed from his position? Bei Yunj raised his eyebrows. What do you mean by removed? Nancy turned around and saw Bei Yunj. He explained, early this morning, this matter was spread everywhere. They said that Donner was suddenly removed from his position by the school board of K Continent Academy today and that the vice director will be promoted. It's really retribution. Nancy sighed and felt that she didn't have to do anything. Bei Yunj's eyes darkened. She suddenly remembered that this morning, Zhou Yu had hurriedly avoided her and left with a document. Nancy's voice interrupted Bei Yunj's thoughts. I heard from Shang Yan that you don't want the doctor from Zhongxinglin. Why don't you try the one I found? Bei Yunj saw Nancy take out a folder. When she picked it up and opened it, the photos inside were also very familiar. Luo squinted. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched, and she immediately threw the documents back onto the table. No need. Why did you refuse? This young man was very accomplished in medicine. Even that old man Stephen had praised him. Besides, this young man really likes you. He begged me for a long time. Bei Yunj, why didn't she know about this? Get her away from me. I don't want to cause trouble for myself. Bei Yunj glanced at Nancy, still cold and emotionless. Nancy, he didn't know what that young man was thinking. He actually liked his disciple. When he talked about he looked like a nervous little boy. But he had heard from Stephen that Wuxia had done a lot of research on bipolar disorder I. Maybe he had a way to cure Bei Yunj. Nancy laughed. That young man won't let it go. I think he's very fanatical about you. Bei Yunj, please inform the administrator backstage if you need help. Chapter 1067. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. There was no need for that. By the way, did anyone look for you in the past 2 days? Nancy seemed to have thought about it for a long time before he finally asked. What's wrong? Bei Yunj looked up at him. Nancy's eyebrows were almost twisted into a fried dough twist, but after a while, he sighed. It's the Confederation's Laboratory 191. Bei Yunj had some impression of this laboratory. Nancy had mentioned it to her before. The level of the laboratory in Continent K could overlook the entire world. And the Confederation's Laboratory 191 was considered the leader of the dragons in Continent K. Are they planning to look for me? Bei Yunj asked. The influence of Confederation 191 in Continent K is not to be underestimated. Logically speaking, as long as you enter Continent K, it's impossible for them not to know. Even if they find you at the airport, the chances of them finding you are very high. Nancy was also puzzled. Bei Yunj said, I took a private plane here. Nancy was speechless. He had really underestimated the power of money. Master, you don't want me to enter Confederation 191? Bei Yunj looked at Nancy. In Bei Yunj's opinion, Nancy had a lot of unknown past. The first time she saw him, Nancy leaned against the roadside in ragged clothes and did not care about trifles. Bei Yunj mistook him for a beggar. But in Country R, the elegant and warm decorations of the Backton Manor did not seem like Nancy's style. Nancy's eyes were cold and his tone was sarcastic. That dark and ugly place. Everyone's heart is dirty. Bei Yunj looked at him for a while. She just smiled silently. Don't worry, I won't go. Nancy still couldn't help but test her. Really? Actually, Confederation 191 has a lot of experimental data that hasn't been exposed. It's very beneficial for you. As expected. Bei Yunj's hand stopped and she suddenly looked up and asked, Then can I? Nancy's eyelids twitched. He instantly knew what she was going to do. You can't. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows lazily, a little unhappy. Nancy was afraid that Bei Yunj would do something crazy, so she said, Don't do anything stupid. I don't want to see you being hunted down by the Confederate 191 in a few days. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. However, I remember that they have a training camp that is open to everyone. As long as you enter the final round of the training competition, you will have the opportunity to enter their library. Nancy's eyes suddenly turned sneaky. The data of the Confederation 191 from a few years ago can all be accessed through the administrator's mainframe. When the time comes, you can make as much as you want. What about the past few years? Bei Yunj asked. In the past few years, they've been researching something. If not for a few years ago, there was still Gu Ruzhou, sure. Nancy paused and quickly said, In the past few years, Confederation 191 has been going downhill. There's nothing to see. But Confederation 191 has a very deep foundation. I'll teach you how to get their documents. Nancy had been analyzing the internal situation of Confederation 191 with her the entire morning. Bei Yunj also more or less knew about the relationship between Nancy and Confederation 191. Nancy used to be an external mentor of Confederation 191, but later on, because of some things, her relationship with Confederation 191 completely collapsed. At noon, Nancy had just taken Bei Yunj to eat when she suddenly received another call. "Whose is it?" "Your brother's?" Nancy said faintly. "No." Bei Yunj said, "Qin, something happened to my third brother." Chapter 1068. Bei Yunj laughed, but her eyes were unreadable. She cut the foie gras slowly. "I'll fight for him. It's useless even if I win." According to the standard procedure, Bei Yunj was not a member of Qin Lang's club, and she did not sign up for the competition. Vic could agree to let her participate, but the competition was for the public to see. "Then, you're just going to watch?" Nancy did not believe that Bei Yunj would do this. Bei Yunj looked at him and smiled. "I'll go out in the next few days." "What?" "But the registration for Confederation 191 is the day after tomorrow. If you miss it, you'll have to wait another year." Nancy frowned. This competition could not be signed up by others. "Then we'll talk about it next year," Bei Yunj said lightly. Nancy was stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted. "Is it for your third brother?" Bei Yunj did not say anything. Nancy did not understand Bei Yunj either. Bei Yunj looked like she did not want to get close to the Qin family, but when the Qin family was in trouble, she had to protect the Qin family's interests first. Nancy knew very well how precious the data of Confederation 191 was to Bei Yunj, who was as talented as a hacker. Where did such a cold-faced but warm-hearted girl come from? Nancy could not help muttering. "I owe her this," Bei Yunj said carelessly. When Nancy heard this, he thought that Bei Yunj was talking about Qin Lang. In the afternoon, Luo Xia came to Nancy's laboratory. "It's still not possible. She might think that you're not suitable." Nancy touched the teapot and said calmly. "Then who does she like?" Luo Xia pursed his lips. "Not yet. Sai, young man, listen to me. He's not a good person." Nancy began to speak ill of her apprentice in a serious manner. However, Luo Xia noticed the candy wrapper and unopened candy on the table. He could not help but frown. This candy is, in Luo Xia's opinion, this kind of food should not be in a laboratory. It was too disrespectful to scientific research. "You like it?" Nancy was stunned. Luo Xia's eyelids twitched. "Senior, do you have any relatives here?" "No," Nancy said. "Then this child's snacks." Luo Xia's eyes were filled with disgust. Nancy happened to catch the emotions in Luo Xia's eyes. Her turbid eyes flashed with a flash of light. "This is food." Luo Xia's body trembled. He suddenly raised his head, his gaze exceptionally cold. It was as if Nancy had insulted his idol. Nancy, he couldn't figure out why Bei Yunj had such a good image in Luo Xia's eyes. "It's really hers. How old am I? How can I like to eat such things?" Nancy would never admit that she had stolen Bei Yunj's candies. Luo Xia also seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. His face didn't look too good. He discovered that his idol's private life was different from what he had imagined. In his opinion, he should be an arrogant, unruly, and cold person. But why would she eat sweets? And they were all strawberry-flavored. Then, Luo Xia said something that didn't sound very smart. "How can she eat candy?" "Nancy, see how that wicked apprentice of his has got the young man in a trance." He laughed. "What, do you think she's a goddess who can't eat? Only drinking dew?" She didn't. Chapter 1069. Luo Xia was in a daze and even his figure was on the verge of collapsing. It was as if he had been deceived. Nance looked at Luo Xia with pity and thought of what Zhong Xinglin had taught Si Chengyan. Stay away from your idol's private life. Otherwise, you'll never know how wild your idol is when she's not human. "Sai, I'll tell you the truth, kid. Nance could not stand it anymore and tried to persuade him. Gu, that's not what you imagined at all. She has a bad mouth, a bad temper, and likes to hold grudges. However, Nance did not expect Wuxia to not believe him and even look at him coldly. Senior, even if you don't like her, you can't insult her reputation like this, Wuxia said. Nance was speechless. Wasn't he telling the truth? No, Luo, old Mr. Nance, since you're not willing to help me, I'll go back first. Before Wuxia left, he interrupted Nance's explanation. Oh right, even if you don't help me, I hope you won't insult me like this. He smiled coldly. You were talented back then, but I believe that you will soon surpass your achievements. With that said, Wuxia directly turned and left. Nance was speechless. Hardcore fans could not afford to offend him. These few days. Bei Yunj greeted Huashidu and said that she was studying at her senior's place. Huashidu rarely asked her anything else. He only told her to rest. However, many things had happened in Continent K these few days. As Qin Lang was not around, the remaining team members and coaches got into a fight on the way back to the hotel and were sent to the local police station in Continent K for a few days. And because of this, Qin Lang was so angry that he almost beat up this group of bastards and made them his friends. In the ward, the old coach was still discussing a solution with Qin Lang. These bastards, they're all too outrageous. If they were in front of you, they wouldn't dare to fight. Qin Lang glanced at him and sneered. The old coach paused and smiled awkwardly. But Ozhua is indeed stronger than me. He can train you better, but he can't suppress the other brats. In half a month, when I officially leave. Qin Lang changed the topic. The whole team was sent to the police station because of a fight. I don't know what the outside world is talking about. Don't worry about that. The news outside has been suppressed. Nothing has been leaked, the old coach said. What? Qin Lang looked up at him in surprise. In the past, as long as there was a slight disturbance in the esports circle, it could cause the entire esports circle to sink. However, the news of the entire RS team being sent to the police station for fighting was so explosive, yet it didn't spread like wildfire. Speaking of which, I also find it strange. The headquarters was prepared to suppress it for you, but in the end, the person who suppressed it for you was EG Corporation. The old coach sighed. EG Corporation has been expanding the market in Continent K recently. They're much better than our headquarters. However, why would EG Corporation help us? Qin Lang's short silver hair was messy, and his dark eyes were gloomy. He remembered that Gu seemed to know Vic from EG Corporation. However, when Qin Lang called Bei Yunj, no one answered. Forget it. Let's find out what happened when they were fighting. Qin Lang leaned against the wall and said calmly. 7 days passed. The finals of Map of the Gods on Continent K had begun. Chapter 1070. After Xiaofan hung up the phone, he was completely relaxed. His power would protect him. He just played with a woman, not murder or arson. No matter what, he would not admit to this. How could an artist be associated with a rapist? He would never allow anyone to ruin his image. As for Yuan, Xiaofan crossed his fingers, his eyes filled with viciousness. He would make her regret being so stupid and ignorant. For some reason, the news of Xiaofan being detained by the Yuncheng police station exploded on the entire foreign network. Especially when they found out that the instigator of this matter was Yuan, it caused a heated discussion and anger. What does Country A mean? Country-wise people detained them so casually? They're so bold. Could there be a conspiracy behind this? The music industry doesn't get involved in politics. I also hope that Country A respects artists. Thank you. Isn't Yuan the most speechless one? The International Musicians Association has a hierarchical system. No matter how powerful Yuan is, she's inferior to Mr. Xiaofan in seniority. Isn't it obvious that there's someone behind this? How dare they stop Xiaofan's performance? I request for Yun to withdraw from the International Musicians Association. That's right. Yun must withdraw from the International Musicians Association. Country A has no right to detain Xiaofan. I heard that too. It said that the woman who was violated looks very ordinary. The discussion grew louder and louder. The next day, there were even members of the International Musicians Association who jointly requested Yun to withdraw from the International Musicians Association. However, to everyone's surprise, not only did Du Xiao not let them withdraw, he even forced this group of joint petitioners to withdraw. The people on the foreign network were furious. I can tell now. Du Xiao is Yun's backer. You just found out? When Du Xiao brought Yun into the International Musicians Association, he probably wanted to pass the position to Yun. Otherwise, would Yun dare to be so arrogant? After this incident, Du Xiao's side couldn't be at peace. President Du, how can we protect Yun? The voices outside are too loud. If this continues, I'm afraid they will boycott the International Musicians Association. Mais, tell me the truth. Did Xiaofan do that kind of thing? Du Xiao asked expressionlessly. Mais wanted to say something but hesitated. Du Xiao, you know, I don't want the International Musicians Association to be handed over to a group of people who have no bottom line. I don't know the details, but the forces behind Xiaofan have been building relationships with the people above Nili recently. I'm afraid it's most likely. Du Xiao rubbed the space between his eyebrows. In the end, he sighed and said indifferently, then no matter what I say, I won't let him stay. President Du, if he stays, it will be troublesome for Yun. After Du Xiao finished speaking, someone suddenly barged in, Elder Du. Oh no, someone hacked Yun's external account. What? Du Xiao's expression changed. Bei Yunja's external account had always been managed by the International Musicians Association. Other than the occasional works, there was nothing else. That person used Yun's account to send a private message to the International Musicians Association. He said that if we don't hand Yun over, he will attack the International Musicians Association's official website. Let all the programs in the International Musicians Association collapse. The boy who spoke showed the private message to Du Xiao, but the next moment, he saw that person using Yun's account to shout. They said that they would attack the International Musicians Association's official website at 10:00 today. Extremely arrogant and conceited. Ridiculous. Du Xiao slammed the table angrily and stood up. However, just as Du Xiao made up his mind to contact his friends in this field to deal with this matter, they all avoided him. Obviously, they also thought that Yun was reaping what she sowed. End of this chapter. Chapter 1071. This should be the most tragic loss in the history of the RS team. How can we continue watching this? What's wrong with the RS team? They changed 2 members of the second team. That's right. Where did Almighty Qin go? We want Almighty Qin. We want Almighty Qin. The fans of the RS team were furious and dissatisfied, but they did not know that Qin Lang was injured and hospitalized. At this moment, Xiao Zhi's eyes were filled with mockery and he was overjoyed. He had finally trampled the RS team under his feet. It's too boring to win like this. One more round and we'll win completely. Xiao Zhi's team started to clamor. The team members on the other side were without a leader and started to panic. After all, they had tried to change the main team members in the past, but they did not expect that there would be no main team members. During the intermission, the audience who came because of the fame were attacking the remaining members of the RS team, putting a lot of pressure on the players who went on stage. They were also trying to force Qin Lang out. The coach went on stage and said something like encouragement. Play well. Almighty Qin is waiting for you to win. However, this made the team members even more nervous and they could not think calmly, until they were about to go on stage again. the team members could no longer bear the pressure. "Coach, but no one caught the emotions that flashed past the coach's eyes. He suddenly handed a bottle of water to the team members and comforted them. "Dai Cheng, drink it and it will improve your concentration." Dai Cheng froze. Looking at the coach's eyes, he quickly understood what it was. Forbidden drugs. 2 years ago, the Maps of the Gods competition clearly stipulated that stimulants and other drugs could not be used to improve the player's concentration. However, occasionally, there would still be players who were found to have used forbidden drugs. Qin Lang had clearly told all of them that those who dared to use forbidden drugs would have to get out of the RS team. "No, Brother Lang won't give in." Dai Cheng immediately refused. He did not want to ruin his career future, nor did he want the RS team to be ashamed of him. The coach suddenly said sternly, "The headquarters have long been concerned about Qin Lang's hand injury. If we don't win this competition, Almighty Qin might be replaced. Do you want Almighty Qin to leave because of you?" Dai Cheng froze. He also remembered that during the recent meeting, the headquarters wanted to arrange for other people to come in. Instantly, Dai Cheng became agitated. "But Almighty Qin led us to win so many competitions. The headquarters, that's why you have to win." The coach's words crushed Dai Cheng's mentality step by step. Dai Cheng was groomed by Qin Lang and was the most talented player. However, he was also the one in RS who panicked the most because of Qin Lang. "Dai Cheng, only you can save Almighty Qin, do you understand? Don't worry, I won't let anyone find out." The coach guided him step by step. At this moment, Dai Cheng's heart was already in turmoil. However, just as Dai Cheng was about to announce the results, there was a sudden exclamation from the audience. Everyone turned their heads subconsciously, but they did not expect to see Qin Lang walking out from the backstage. As for the audience, they were also stunned when they saw the bandage on Qin Lang's hand. What was going on? Almighty Qin was injured? There was no emotion in Qin Lang's clear black eyes. He lowered his head slightly and stroked his signature short silver hair. There was no emotion on his elegant and exquisite face. However, even though Qin Lang was wearing his battle uniform and was only standing among the audience, he still caused an uproar in the field. This caused Xiao Zhi's gaze to turn gloomy, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. End of chapter. Chapter 1072. On Neely's side. The young man had already regained his senses and wanted to contact his organization, but both the forum and group had disappeared. It was as if they had never existed. The young man's expression changed and he immediately looked at the local hacker forum and realized that everyone was discussing this matter. Did guns offend someone recently? They're having a good time. When my friend returned home, he realized that his organization was gone. Guns is involved in politics and only looks at the price when accepting orders. This will be over sooner or later, ha 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 ha, I'm glad to see this. I heard that Guns has taken on a big order recently. It's from that person from the International Musicians Association. In the end, they received the deposit and their nest is gone. The young man's expression changed. Seeing that it was exactly 10:00, he turned on his phone in a panic, wanting to log into Yun's account. But at this moment, the account could no longer be logged in. The young man regained his senses and his face gradually turned pale. He logged into his personal account again. He realized that there were indeed many people urging him to attack the International Musicians Association's official website. There was no movement from Yun's account either. After reading it, the young man felt a chill run down his spine. This person who could overturn their entire organization in such a short period of time could be said to be terrifyingly strong. 10:30. After Bai Yunj finished writing the report, she could not fall asleep because it was too early. She was bored. After getting out of bed, she poured a glass of cold water and turned on her computer. After logging into the Neely hacker's personal account, she saw a group chat that was crazily sending messages. It was Yun's haters. They were all questioning the group leader why there was no reaction from the International Musicians Association at 10 o'clock. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows lazily. As if she had thought of something, the corners of her lips suddenly curved. She clicked on the group message leisurely and slowly changed the name of the group, Yun's Good Girls. Ever since Bei Yunj accidentally saw the non-mainstream nicknames of Mo's classmates, she had an endless love for such non-mainstream names. Song Yao was the first victim, but she was definitely not the last. At this moment, when the group members saw the name, their bodies trembled, and goosebumps appeared all over their bodies. What's going on? Is this group leader King playing a spy? Everyone in the group was so shocked that their hair stood on end. Was there something wrong with this group owner? Did he have that serious illness? Yun's obedient girl? Was this the nickname of a primary school fan club? Bei Yunj was still typing lazily. God Yun is the best, the group members were stunned. Has this group owner lost her mind? Many of the group members were so angry that they cursed, but the other party just kept spamming the same sentence and ignored them. Everyone flew into a rage. When they realized that they could not fight against the evil forces, many of them decided to leave the group. But at this moment, they realized that no matter what, they couldn't leave the group. There was even a sentence that popped up in the background. You enjoy the lifelong membership of Yun's Good Girls. Everyone, it wasn't harmful, but it was extremely insulting. They wanted to kill the group leader. While everyone was fuming with anger, Bei Yunj was still slowly writing a program. He didn't wait for the group members to react. Suddenly, they saw someone taking the lead to swipe, God Yun is the best, God Yun is the best. All of them kept swiping this message as if they were possessed. When they regained their senses, they realized that they were also swiping uncontrollably. Chapter 1073. And the ones who were most agitated were the anti-fans who had just joined the Boycott Yun group chat. Who would have thought that before he could conceive a great anti-fan career, the group chat would become Yun's Good Girls, in the blink of an eye. A certain boy's body trembled. What the F***CK? Is this a F***King trap? Before he could come back to his senses, what was even more creepy was that he saw all the group members, excitedly, scrolling, God Yun is the best. As an anti-fan, he felt a chill run down his spine. He had actually been deceived by a hardcore fan club. The boy immediately wanted to leave the group and run away, but when he chose to leave the group, a sentence popped up from the backstage, you enjoy the lifetime membership of Yun's Good Girls. The boy? Was this something a human would do? But until later. Only then did the others know that this anti-fan group was called Boycott Yun. As long as they chose to join the group chat, the name would immediately change to Yun's Good Girls. What a good trick. At the same time, the young man, who was mentally preparing himself, took a deep breath and clicked on it when he heard the constant notifications from the group chat. However, he did not expect the situation to change. No one was scolding him anymore. Even the group name had changed. The young man looked at the God Yun is the best. His expression changed, but the fear in his heart also arose. It was obvious. After the other party hacked into his computer, he obtained all his information and even knew who he was. The young man took a deep breath and suppressed his fear. He no longer dared to provoke this person. He could not win against this person at all. But immediately after, everyone saw that Yun had actually updated her status. It was as if she was feeding everyone chicken soup for life, but it was also inexplicably annoying. Yun, in this world, there are always people secretly loving you. Picture, the attached picture was a screenshot of a group message called Yun's Good Girls. Inside, all of them were spamming the slogan, God Yun is the best. And those who were paying attention to this matter realized that these people who were spamming slogans were all Yun's anti-fans. What was going on? Were these anti-fans all fence-sitters? Where were the hackers who wanted to attack the International Musicians Association? They had agreed to meet at 10 o'clock, so why was the account back in Yun's hands? The onlookers couldn't understand. And all the anti-fans were so angry that they almost blacked out. How shameless could he be? How shameless was she? In the meantime, many unorganized anti-fans were puzzled. They could not understand why their former comrades had suddenly betrayed them. Hence, when the unorganized anti-fans saw that there was still a group of people in the biggest boycott group, they all applied to join the group. But then, the familiar scene appeared again. In the blink of an eye, the group name suddenly changed to Yun's Good Girls. The new haters, ? What the heck? What kind of death operation was this? That night, all the anti-fans felt for the first time what it meant to kick an iron board. That night, Yun's group of girls continued to grow. Every member who had entered the group and received the honor of being a lifelong fan was so angry that they couldn't sleep. Especially later on. The old anti-fans tried their best to tell everyone not to join a certain anti-fan group, but there were always people who killed the cat out of curiosity. They became Yun's obedient girl and fell into extreme regret. Du Xiao, Du Xiao, you got the account back? Chapter 1074. Especially when they saw that their favorite team member was half dead. What the F***ck, is this new girl crazy? Why is the team battle like this? God, I can play better than her even if I use my face to roll on the keyboard. The fans of RS team were especially angry. However, after Bei Yunj saw the skill level of the other members of the team, her originally clear voice became slightly hoarse. Dai Cheng, Jian, 25 seconds. The rest of you, continue to defend. Hearing this, Dai Cheng and Jian froze when they heard this familiar sentence. Others might not know what it meant to announce the time. But in RS team, this was a common sentence for Dai Cheng, Jian, and Qin Lang. This person had probably watched a lot of videos of their games. However, even Qin Lang rarely announced the time within 30 seconds. However, in the current situation, RS team had all fallen. This was their last chance to turn the tables. Dai Cheng and Jian gritted their teeth and could only rush up to attack. Just as Xiao Ji and the others were about to deal with Dai Cheng and Jian, Bei Yunj finally took action to attract the firepower. The audience and the people in the live broadcast room exploded. Is this girl crazy? What is she planning to do by attacking with Half-Blood? Is she going to deliver a kill and it's a 1 versus 4? Don't play if you don't know how to play. This F***king RS team is going to become a joke because of her. At this moment, Xiao Ji's eyes were also filled with sarcasm. He only left one person to deal with Dai Cheng and Jian, who were Half-Blood. Bei Yunj suddenly pursed her lips and a playful smile appeared on her beautiful eyes. When the others were not paying attention, 15 seconds had passed. Suddenly, no one noticed that the person in RS team's main seat had already operated the keyboard as fast as a shadow. A snake-like movement, coupled with a dazzling operation, was so fast that no one could see the control clearly under the game's special effects. Even the commentator felt that it was only a moment. The words in the middle of the screen seemed to be stuck. From the first kill to the fourth kill, it was done in one go. Before the commentator could even speak, the main god controlled by Bei Yunj had already teleported to Dai Cheng's direction in the last 3 seconds. The fifth kill and the destruction of the camp made this game end in 3 seconds. This scene. Even Dai Cheng and Jian were stunned. Why was this so different from what they had agreed with Almighty Qin before? Almighty Qin reported that he would arrive in half a minute to assist. This father's time report was to end the battle in 25 seconds? What kind of extreme reversal was this? Commentator. Why was there another person who wanted to ruin their livelihood? He hadn't even started commentating, but the competition was already over? Originally, they thought that the most difficult task would be explaining Almighty Qin. But now, they suddenly felt that this newcomer was even more inhuman. The bullet screen was dead silent as well. Just now. Was there something wrong with their network? Why did the battle end in the blink of an eye? The bullet screen and live audience went crazy. Did this newbie cheat? F***CK, I just realized that this big shots record in Continent Z is against Team HK. Team HK hasn't won even once. Wait, let me make sure that I'm not dreaming. Will RS win? F***CK, this big sister is really fierce, too ferocious. 5 straight kills, this flying effect is even better than Almighty Qin. Look at the expressions of the other RS team members, they're all dumbfounded. I'm dying of laughter. Billion God. Blow up our Billion God, woo-woo. I just saw the forum and found out that Billion God actually came to substitute for the competition. I can finally see my daddy Billion play live. End of chapter. Chapter 1075. The friend above is late. Your Ishan is already in a killing frenzy. The people on the other side are all gone. The live stream platform had a nameplate special effect for the rich people who had rewarded them. Therefore, one of the comments by an ID called, Brother Ishan's Little Cutie, jumped into the eyes of the public. Why is my Ishan a girl? Everyone seemed to be able to hear the heartbreak of his girlfriend fans and couldn't help but want to laugh. But then, the annoying netizens in the live stream started to bully the rich people. Sister Ishan's Little Cutie, DBQ Ishan is too handsome, I'm here to get the ID. Sister Ishan's Little Cutie, me too. Dog head, Sister Ishan's Little Cutie, sob, who isn't a Ishan's Little Cutie? This competition directly sent, earn 100 million first, to the hot search in China and abroad. It also made the scalps of the other teams that wanted to crush RS Team today tingle. The previous round took at most 15 minutes. Xiaoji's team used more than 10 minutes to beat RS Team to a pulp. But RS Team relied on Ishan alone to turn the tide in 25 seconds and destroy the team. Even the opponent's resurrection time had not started. Almighty Qin left, and Ishan came. Xiaoji's face darkened and he almost threw his keyboard. Who exactly are you? He was so close to beating Qin Lang. Pei Yunj was still slowly putting on her black leather gloves. Her eyes were filled with laziness and impudence as she said slowly, "You don't have to know who I am. Those who are beaten down can only call me Daddy." Dai Cheng and the other members, this temporary captain was so ruthless. The first round was just luck. Next, I'll let you know the consequences of being arrogant. Xiaoji said fiercely. But in the last 2 rounds, after RS Team calmed down, they were already familiar with Bei Yunj's command. As long as Bei Yunj went to destroy the camp, the entire competition was very thorough. 2. Crushing him. This was even worse than when Qin Lang was the main force. The second half of the competition between Xiaoji's team and RS Team ended in less than half an hour. And the applause of RS Team's victory was like bad news, shaking the other teams. Xiaoji's team was over. They were next. The live stream and the audience were very lively. Ishan is killing like crazy, killing like crazy. This RS fan is so happy. Who wouldn't say that Daddy E is awesome? Almighty Qin's fans are also thrilled. But if Almighty Qin comes back, who will be the captain? They are both so strong. Am I the only one who thinks they can be a couple? No. I said no. I will not allow my 2 husbands to betray me. He stopped midway. The captain of the HK team walked over with a terrible expression. This made Dai Cheng and the others subconsciously stand in front of Bei Yunj, fearing that there would be a conflict. After all, they had always been at odds with the HK team. Dai Cheng was caught off guard and pushed away by the HK captain. What are you trying to do? This voice attracted the attention of the spectators from the other teams. But then, everyone's jaws dropped. The HK captain looked aggrieved. "Coach, why did you become the captain of RS?" Bei Yunj glanced at him. "Weren't you unwilling to join RS?" HK captain, did she mean that he was unwilling to join RS, so she was the only one who could replace him? As for the others, when they saw this scene, their jaws almost fell to the ground. They had always heard that the HK team had improved tremendously recently because of a big boss coach. So this coach was Ishan. P.S. Good night, end of chapter.